What's going on, guys? Welcome to our third annual Senior Bowl live stream. You got one of your co-hosts here, Umar Desai, one half of the Desai Guys Football Forum. You got my other co-host down there in the bottom right. You got Tad Desai, the other half of the co-host of the Desai Guys Football Forum. But we're joined by some good friends here, friends of the podcast, big writers and content creators for LAFB Network. We got Al Rowe to my guess that's my left, right? Like pointing this way, you got Alro there, host of the Salute Detroit podcast, covering all your USC Trojans news. When it's new stuff, whether it's old stuff, whatever it is, he's got you covered. So, Al, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us today.
I'm good. Happy Saturday. People staying on SoCal. Hope you're staying dry. We're supposed to get a dry day today, but got a lot of clouds. But other than that, got a fire going, got some drinks, got some snacks, ready to do this with you guys.
Right on. That's the way to do it. And of course, we're joined by the boss man, the creator of LAFB Network. He's always gracious to join us for these live streams as well, even if it's only for a portion of it. But hey, we're grateful for any much of the time that he can provide for us. And that is Ryan Dyer. Ryan, so happy you could join us for as much as you can, obviously. And just, glad to have you on.
What is up? No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad this is what the third or fourth year
Third
doing
one,
this?
yeah.
Third one. Always fun. I love the Senior Bowl. One year we'll all be down there. Maybe when we get our van, we can drive down there since it's a pain to get to Mobile. But happy to chat through it and excited to watch this game and see how these prospects do and go through it. And Al, I'm jealous. You have a fireplace out there. That sounds real nice right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, dude. I would show it to you, but my living room looks like Hurricane Katrina came through here. We'll call it Hurricane Bo. Hurricane Bo has destroyed the living room, and it's already 10 o'clock in the morning. So,
nice.
Yeah, I don't know why we do it. We clean it up at night, and then by 8:45, when he hits the living room, it's back to what it was.
I get that.
That's what happens when you got the kids there, for sure. But hey, hopefully we should get a guest appearance, and that should be fun. I know we get guest appearances by Mia, Ryan's daughter, and we'll get appearances by Tad's cat too. So I mean, it's just like it's all fun. Everybody's welcome here on the live stream.
He's hyped for today. He will most certainly make an appearance. No, fireplaces are weird. I was looking at apartments. So by the way, in case my background looks a little different, I'm in a new apartment. But I was looking at apartments in Dallas, last week, and there was, I'm not even joking, there was one apartment with a fireplace in the middle of the living room. Like one
that's dope.
Like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Fire. It's not dope. It's a fire hazard.
No, it's not. It's very feng shui. That means you're like the Jeffersons. You moved on up.
There you go.
How did one half of the side guys die while smoking inhalation?
Well, there's a good replacement right above you, so don't worry about it.
Oh,
Wow. Like that.
And we will be joined later by Jamal Modney because he's finally telling us the correct way to pronounce his last name. So he should be joining us in a handful of minutes as well to give his takes on the Senior Bowl. But guys, as we talked about, the Senior Bowl is happening today. We're going to give you, our analysis as the game is happening. So, I mean, if you're out there and you're watching us, turn into the NFL Network. The game is going to be happening in maybe about 5 or so minutes. They're showing some, pregame stuff right now. But, I mean, and hey, speak of the devil, there he is right now, Jamal Modney. Add him to the crew here. What's going on, Jamal? We're actually just talking about you right now, and you joined at the right time.
Hey, Indian culture would say that I'm going to live for a million years. Let's hope that's true. But how
Black
you guys
culture
doing?
too. Black culture too. You live forever. I was just talking about you.
don't appropriate our culture.
I love it.
Go.
How you guys doing? Great to see everyone.
No, awesome to have you, Jamal. Like we're talking about, it's our third annual Senior Bowl live stream, and you've been in all 3 iterations of the live stream as well. So yeah, glad you can make it for the third one too. Should be a good day. We got all the scouts prospected for the most part. I mean, we'll see if we can get through everything, but let's kick off with a question here. So, I mean, guys, as we're sort of going through the prospect class here, and we're seeing all the prospects, not necessarily for this game, but just like overall for the 2024 draft class. What do you think would be the strongest position group in this year's draft class? And if you want to focus it on today's game, I mean, feel free to go for it too there. So, Jamal, you're the freshest one here, so I'm going to kick it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of positions that I like. Amar, I think there's a lot of talent, defensive line and edge. I like what I'm seeing in the secondary. I also like what I'm seeing in terms of offensive line prospects. I think those are kind of the 3 that I'm looking at here. Obviously, quarterback is the big unknown with Caleb and Drake May and beyond. But I think those are kind of the three positions that I've got my eye on, particularly in this game, as well as kind of in the evaluation process moving forward.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, Tad, I'm going to kick you the flip question here. So Jamal's talking about the strongest prospects in this year's draft class as far as position groups, but what do you think are the weakest positions in this year's draft class?
I'm not very impressed by this year's running back class. I think that there's no single running back that's really jumping out to me. That last year we had Bijan Robinson. Obviously, it's so bad Cap is running away, as I discussed it. But, it's not that saying it's a bad class. It's just not a particularly strong class, and it's one of those things that's tough because this is a year where I've said for a while on our show, the Decide Guys, where this is one of the deepest drafts I've seen in my entire life. Really, at every position, there's a lot of talent to like. Especially while I was scouting for this game, I was like, wow, there's this guy who could be a first rounder in any other year. That didn't happen with running back. So for me, there's the running back class. If you need a running back, this is not the year to do it. I would look, in the veteran pool for that.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I actually got the running backs to scout this year. It just, I felt a lot of the running backs. It was just like, oh yeah, they're great, but they're not like elite level at any of the particular skills. So, I mean, it's going to be curious to see how the whole draft process goes for a lot of these running backs. Al, I'm going to pass it to you. What do you think is either the weakest or the strongest position group this year's draft class? You go in either direction.
I think the most overrated position, I think it's the quarterback position. I think the quarterbacks are really top heavy. Like you got the Caleb Williams, the Drake Mays, and then after that, it just takes a complete dive, right? It turns into a really bearish market, right? So you got the top guys, and then after that, it's all projects, in my opinion. So I think the quarterbacks are getting a little underrated. And I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those things, but I think the strongest is up front on both sides. The O-line and the defensive line this year are really, really heavy. I think this might be one of those years where you see a lot of guys up front get drafted on Thursday. And, I mean, it won't be shocking because the talent up there is just amazing.
All right, good to know. So if you're looking for trench warfare, I guess this is the draft class to get one for sure to upgrade your
trench
offense.
Warfare coming out in March for gamers everywhere.
Ryan, I'll kick it to you here last, but certainly not least. I mean, do you have any thoughts as far as what do you think is the strongest and or weakest position groups in this year's draft class? Maybe you got an answer that hasn't already been brought up, but it's all good if you have something that's a repeat too.
Yeah, a lot of deep groups. I think I like the receiver group. I'll just stick with kind of what I will be talking about anyway. And I think it's a good group. Obviously up at the top, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Roma Duze, but I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be in that second, third, fourth round that can be, real playmakers. And, obviously I know much more about the SC guys and this game, Brendan Rice, Taj Washington playing in the Shrine Bowl. I think those are guys that can surprise some teams and move up draft boards. I think there's a lot of receivers in that respect that, you see every year, right? There's the few guys in the first round, but then there's always those mid-round guys that end up being playmakers in their respective teams across the NFL. So I think receiver again this year is going to be a really deep group that can make a big impact, early on as rookies.
Definitely. I think obviously with the receivers groups, after sort of moving along here, different draft classes, like you get all of the combinations as far as receivers that you're looking for, whether you're looking for a speed guy, whether you're looking for a possession guy, it's like you can find that all over the place here. So we just had kickoff and we got a handoff to that's why Tad's getting excited, the TCU running back, Amani Bailey. But yeah, should be a good game for us here. I didn't see
my stream is clearly first. Way behind your guys. That's gonna
be the live stream. We all got different, some of us may be a little ahead, some of us may be a little bit behind here. But so yeah, we got the American team on offense first. I didn't see who was at quarterbacks. I don't know if you guys
Rattler. It's Rattler.
Rattler is in there first. All right, very interesting.
Choice. I did not anticipate him being the starter, but Rattler, so I'll just jump right into the scouting.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. I was like, don't talk about Amani Bailey. Let's talk about the quarterback.
I really want to talk about Amani Bailey, but we'll wait on that.
Let's get to that first here. What are your thoughts on Rattler?
So, let's play my favorite game, over-under. Amir, I won't pick on you. Let's go Jamal. Jamal, over-under 1,100 career snaps for Spencer Rattler.
Under.
Over.
It's over.
1,300. college career snaps. That's how long he's been in college. Obviously, I mean, he is perfect for the Senior Bowl because he has had a wild college career with being, the heralded next big thing at Oklahoma, then being benched like 6 weeks later, then having to go to South Carolina. Al, I think your house just blew up. And then, it was funny watching him at South Carolina because I watched them very casually throughout the season, and I was like, wow, Spencer Rattler looks really good. And then as I started scouting him for this game, what I found was he's very inconsistent. He will have these throws where I'm like, oh, that's pro ready. You are good to go. And then I very quickly realized his biggest weakness is, God, Monty Bailey is so good. His biggest weakness is that Spencer Rattler likes to play hero ball too quickly. Meaning, like, he will put himself under pressure when he really don't need to be. Like, he'll roll out of the pocket and throw on the run when you really don't need to. With his size, he's about 6'1", 215. His panicky nature, there's a lot of promise there for a solid backup, but in terms of can this guy develop into a good starter, I think that ship has sailed.
So, Tad, I'm going to translate this for our LA football fans. You essentially just said he's Caleb Williams without the talent.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's a very good way of putting it, because that's my issue with Caleb Williams too. Is he just like, why are you rolling out? Stop. Say your feet. Don't throw on the run. And like, it's just, and yeah, Caleb Williams though is like, no, yes. And Spencer Rattler is like, no. And it's just like, there's the yes never comes.
That's fair.
The thing that worries me about Spencer Rattler, and if you want to get a good judgment of his character, is to watch QB1 on Netflix. He never was a team guy. It was always about Spencer Rattler. And then like watching him and you seeing his progression and play through Oklahoma and South Carolina, like he's never grew out of that. He never matured out of that. And so, I mean, it's okay to have a little cockiness, have a little bit of chip on your shoulder, but I just don't think mentally he's a team leader.
That's fair. Now we're seeing some running backs getting some early play for the American team here. And so, yeah, let's really quickly talk about Amani Bailey. So, I mean, I'll bring up a few notes here, but I think, Tad, you can sort of speak to it the most, being a TCU fan. But, I mean, based on the tape that I'm seeing, and sort of what I've been seeing in this game as well, is just, quick to work north and south. I mean, he's showcasing just like he's got that sort of quick burst right off the bat. Outside zone type of player. He's got good speed. I think he's going to be a very much a developmental guy, but there's a lot of traits that you can use on him very early in his career. So I mean, just
that was a dime
on Amani Bailey. But actually, before we even get to that, I mean, we already have ourselves a touchdown here. We got Spencer Rattler to Rosemi Jackson, I believe, from the University of Georgia, the wide receiver there. So I mean, yeah, we got an early score. They marched down the field pretty easily. Now, hopefully we should get some good scoring in this game. I mean, based on what we see through practices, usually the offense is a little bit more prepared than the defense. So, I mean, that's why you may see a little bit more offensive scoring, hopefully, in this game. Defenses also play very simple defensive coverages. There's no blitzing there. I think they're pretty much in a 4-3, if I remember correctly, too. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's probably why we got a score there. But, I mean,
that was a take that, Tad and Jamal from Spencer Rattler.
But that's what I mean. Notice how he set in the pocket, he set his feet, and then he delivered an absolute dime. It's when he starts rolling out and then tries to be, like Mr. Patrick Mahomes. That's when he starts making mistakes. If he did that more often, then I would be confident. And I bet you if he plays the next 2 drives, there's going to be a play where he tries to make too much happen. Because that was a perfect example of when he actually just plays, does what the play asks. He's amazing. He has great accuracy. It's just when he tries to make too much happen.
More CJ Stroud, less Mahomes.
Exactly.
What team is Rattler on? Is Rattler on the National or the American?
American.
He's on the American.
I might ask that like 15 times. So
good. Well, it's north and south anymore, so
it's all okay. Yeah, exactly.
Where do you see?
But yeah, that was a perfect throw right there in the back of the quarter. So,
where do you guys see Rattler as a fit in the NFL?
In terms of role, I see him as a very solid kind of like Gardner Minshew type backup. In terms of where, which team, he would be. How about this? He'd be an interesting backup to Jalen Hurts. I could see him kind of succeeding in that Eagles system a little bit.
That'd be a good move. Al Jamal, what do you think on Spencer Rattler? Where do you think he'll slide in the best as far as the NFL team?
I could see him go to the Cowboys and be kind of a backup to Dak. I think there's some similarities there in terms of where you want his game to be, especially now with Dak becoming less mobile later in his career and, sort of going through more traditional progressions and whatnot. I could see him, the sort of the tutelage under Dak could be very good for him in that system.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just that his I don't know, his mental still messes with me a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the one thing but backup for sure. What team? Yeah, maybe the Cowboys. I could see him in Tampa Bay behind Baker Mayfield also, running that type of thing. Also, he'll be a good backup for Baker Mayfield, but yeah,
40 million Mayfield.
Yeah. So anything like that, right? Eagles, Cowboys, Tampa Bay, even maybe the Texans, probably.
Kansas City.
No.
Oh, okay. Why not?
Shot down quickly. Okay.
I was about to say that was like instant.
Because I just, like I said, his mental, he's a me guy, and I don't see Kansas City as a me guy team. Like, even though you have superstars like Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, things like that, you could tell their culture is still great. I think implementing a Spencer Rattler in that culture can tarnish the locker room. You know what I mean?
Andy Reid has always taken me guys and then turned them into team guys. That's his MO.
Yeah, but this is a guy that's not going to play. So when is it going to turn into? When am I going to get my chance? When am I going to get my chance?
You're not going to get a chance with that.
So Fred, essentially what you just said is he's going to be playing for the Las Vegas Raiders next year.
Wow.
Okay, there you go.
Oh my gosh. All right. We got the national team here. And we got ourselves some trickery. They're going for a flea flicker here. Unfortunately, just didn't work out. Trying to hit the receiver Walker for the University of North Carolina here. But yeah, we got the national team on offense. And in case you notice, you didn't miss a kickoff. They're not doing kickoffs here at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, they just started them on offense on, I believe, the 20-yard line, if I can see correctly here. But yeah, looks like we're going to go with Bo Nix first, I think, at quarterback for the national team. And I mean, this is one of those polarizing guys that, some people think he deserves to be in the first round. Some people are thinking maybe he's a fringe early day 2 type of guy. But I mean, he put up pretty good numbers back at the University of Oregon. So I'm curious to see what sort of things he could do in the game, because Tad, based on the practice week that we saw with Bo Nix, it was very up and down. If anything, maybe a little bit more on the negative side. So, I mean, what do you think Bo Nix has to do in today's game to really just, increase his draft stock?
I want to see poise in the pocket. Watching the Bo Nix tape, because, all you Pac-12 people, RIP, by the way, you all play 11 p.m. Central Time. So I did not watch Oregon all that much throughout the season. So scouting Bo Nix, I was very excited because I did not have
it's Saturday. Like, why aren't you staying up late to watch these games, man?
I'm tired, man. I'm almost 30. I'm old.
You're almost 30.
God almighty.
You're almost
play the old card in this group chat. Do not play the old card in this
play that with.
I'm quickly realizing how much older I am than everyone else here.
I'm
Don't
almost
you
30.
dare finish that sentence, Tad. Don't you dare put that on me, Tad Desai.
Tad, I just turned 36 yesterday, and you're almost 30.
Well, happy belated birthday.
I should say I'm almost 40 then. Shoot.
We would sing happy birthday.
Put this in our graves. But yeah, Tad, go ahead and keep talking about Bo Nix.
But I mean, this throw that just happened is a perfect example of that, where poise under pocket is the biggest issue I saw with Bo Nix, because he has a much more gunslinger mentality than I originally anticipated. And he panics too fast, too often, where he just pulls the trigger on a lot of dumb throws that are inaccurate. And you just got to show me, can you stay calm under pressure? It's kind of like watching a modern day Brett Favre, but just not as good. And it's just like, I want to see, can your accuracy be more consistent? Can your head, can it be on a more, can you be more clear? Sorry. There he is.
Got the thoughts on Bo Nix. That's why
can you stay in a more clear headspace and just in general, stay more calm? That's what I want to see from him today is can you stay calm in the pocket, because he just pulls the trigger on a lot of dumb throws. His footwork needs a lot of work. I didn't see a single snap he took under center in Oregon, which is a major concern as well, because that pressure comes to you quicker when you're under center. So just in general, how does he respond to being pressured? And the play I was talking about is a perfect example because, he had an open tight end there and he threw behind him because he was a little bit pressured. It's just, I don't know about his accuracy. Before scouting him, I liked him as a borderline first round prospect. Now I don't see him as a first round prospect. He is Baker Mayfield right now if he is allowed a couple years to develop.
Let me ask you this question, Tad. I have a question for you. What's the difference between Bo Nix at Auburn and the Bo Nix at Oregon?
Like I said, it's, the way Auburn ran him was I choose that verb on purpose is Auburn tried to run him. Is like they tried to make him a dual threat quarterback, which was fair. I'm not going to say that was a bad decision, but I think he is not at his best as a runner. He's as best as a mobile pocket guy, and there is a difference. And I think that Oregon, they really found the key middle ground of like, okay, you can move around a bit, but you're a passer first. And so that's why he did so much better at Oregon than he did at Auburn.
Okay.
So, Ryan, I actually want to pass it to you here because obviously USC and Oregon played each other this year. And based on the tape that I saw with Bo Nix, I mean, he had a lot of time in the pocket, but also the defensive backs for USC were not doing the best tackling. So he got a lot of just wide open receivers that were able to break open big plays. So it's like, I don't know how much is that on Bo Nix, but I mean, do you think Bo Nix, because I want to bring this up to Justin Herbert, where he came from Oregon, there's a lot of talk about just he's playing in a spread offense. Can he make that translate to the NFL? So I'm just curious, with all that talk about Justin Herbert maybe possibly being just a system type quarterback where he needs to be in the right system, but he's clearly finding success in the NFL. So when you watched Bo Nix against USC, did you see similarities to Justin Herbert, or do you think they're two completely different quarterbacks and Bo Nix just may not be able to translate to the NFL? Or maybe he will. So, I mean, what are your thoughts based on the game that you saw against USC?
Well, first, you said it right in the beginning. If anyone out there scouting, don't put on the SC tape. Just throw that tape away. It's not going to give you any real data because it was, any quarterback is going to thrive against that defense. So he was making, obviously, Barnes from Utah look like a Heisman Trophy candidate. So, I wouldn't even look at that tape. But overall, I mean, I think he's got some good attributes. You guys mentioned it all, the size, the arm talent. But it's like, what will he be in the system? What will he be within the play design and whatnot? So I think he can have success. I mean, we saw growth from him over the 2 years with Oregon, with Dan Lanning. Obviously, Dan Lanning's the defensive guy, but changing offensive coordinators from his first year to his second year, and so I think that there's still upside there. To me, he's a fringe first, second rounder. We'll see if someone's desperate to take him in the first, or if he does fall kind of like a Will Levis last year as a guy that has talent, but doesn't quite have enough where teams feel comfortable taking in the first. But I saw some good things over his time, but against SC, I wouldn't put any stock in that because I think any quarterback was looking good against that defense last year, unfortunately.
And here's the thing with him: it's a gunslinger mentality. He's a gunslinger. That's why I brought the Brett Favre thing. Is just like you're gonna win by him and you're gonna lose by him, and it's just like who can harness that the best. And that's why I just don't know about the fit, because I think with the amount of hype around him, depending on where he goes, someone's going to force him in immediately. And I don't think he has the right decision-making skills right now to succeed in a okay, Rook, go out there, go succeed right now. I don't see him pulling a Will Levis where it's like, okay, you're forced in the situation your rookie year. And now all of a sudden, okay, you're our guy. You did pretty well. I don't see that happening.
Omar, the one thing I'll add with Bo Nix is, he had some pretty staggering numbers this year: 77% completion, 45 touchdowns against only 3 interceptions. A lot of that was the talent around him.
Too, correct?
Yeah, a lot of that was the talent around him. He had some pretty talented backs and tight ends, got the ball out early, and just kind of let his playmakers do their thing in space. And then when that wasn't there, he had the opportunity to kind of throw it deep to the likes of Franklin and others. So I think there's still questions about his ability to master a pro level offense. and be able to Tad's point, kind of be able to go through his decision making, go through his progressions, and be able to sort of manage a pro style offense. I actually think the fit for him, we talked about the team earlier, is Philadelphia, because I think when you look at Jalen Hurts at Alabama in particular, very similar to Bo Nix at Oregon, pretty athletic guys. They would just kind of check it down or throw it deep. And when you look at the Philadelphia offense, it's really designed around Hurts' skill set. So I think that would probably be the most seamless transition for Nix. I think if he's given the keys to a pro-style kingdom, I think it's going to be very difficult, and he's probably going to be out of the league in a couple of years. So I think Philly would probably be the spot for him as a backup to start.
I think you know who I think is a good fit for him? And there's multiple people. Anybody off of that Redskins staff, right? And I'm talking about the current Redskins staff. So Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. Any of those guys gets their hands up on Nix, I think it may work because they have access to Mike Shanahan and they also have access to Mike Holmgren. I think they could control his gunslinger, or they could take his weakness and make it really, really good in their play calling style with that West Coast type offense. So I think if he gets in one of those spots, I think he'll be okay as a backup.
What do you think about Denver with Sean Payton?
Think about that actually.
Denver with Sean Payton. I watching Denver, I think he's a little bit different from how he was in New Orleans. I think he could go back to that with Drew Brees in that gunslinger style. That may work, but he's not that right. Sean Payton is not calling it like that right now, but he has that in his back pocket, so that can work, Ryan. That could be a good spot for him.
I think the Rams is an interesting spot because, Stafford's got, what, 1 or 2 more years left in him. It's not looking like, he's going to call it quits in this offseason. So, draft him in the 2nd or 3rd round, let him develop behind Stafford. He's got the rocket arm you need for that system. And then, McVay is the coach to kind of get all those bad tendencies out of him. And then when Stafford calls it quits, Nick steps up. That to me, that's like a dream fit right there.
Nick's had the benefit of a really good offensive line at Oregon. And so when he was able to sort of gunsling, it was 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2. He was also a little bit more calculated in his gunsling because he knew they would convert on 3rd down or 4th down with that offensive line, with those backs. So again, I think his behaviors are going to change significantly in the NFL when you equal out the talent on the field. So it'll be fascinating to see how he progresses.
So spending a lot of time on quarterback Bo Nix for sure. The quarterbacks get a lot of the attention, but there was a play that happened a handful of plays ago here. They had a screen pass to the tight end, Jaheim Bell, out of Florida State. And so, Jamal, I definitely want to talk to you about this position class for the tight ends, because we're talking about the quarterbacks sort of being top heavy, where your Drake Mays and your Caleb Williams and your Jaden Daniels probably the top, but then everything else is sort of need to be figured out through this draft process. I feel very same. And I mean, that's why I want to kick it to you here, Jamal. I feel the same about the tight ends, where it's like you got Brock Bowers, in a class by himself. Then maybe Jatavion Sanders is like trying to catch up to him. But outside of him, it's like, I really don't know what I feel about this tight end class. You got a lot of potential, just you don't know what you have. So I mean, just like really quickly, can you speak about the tight end class, and then speak a little bit about Jaheim Bell, who made a play earlier today.
Yeah, no, Amar, you said it best in terms of kind of the gap between Bowers and everybody else. The gap between 1 and 2 is probably the equivalent to the gap between 2 and 13 in this gap, this class right now. But speaking more specifically, obviously, the 1 and the 2 guys aren't here at the Senior Bowl. But when I look at this group of 6, I kind of have them in 3 different categories. And I got 2 guys that have, I think, a ton of upside. I think 2 guys that are sort of solid, sort of NFL, sort of role players, and then 2 that are more on the project side. Bell is one of the 2 guys here that I think has a significant amount of upside. When you look at, he's 6'3", 239 at Florida State this year. He caught 39 balls. What's kind of significant with Jaheim Bell is, he was longer routes with him as a tight end, and he was super athletic, really explosive plays. I think he had 5 catches this year, over 30 yards. And so, there's sort of a Shannon Sharp element to this guy. Florida State even ran some jet sweeps with him inside the red zone. So I think he's a guy that could be very, very valuable in the right situation. I mean, if you kind of get everything clicking with Jaheim Bell, you're talking about a gadget type of offensive player of the ilk of a Deebo Samuel, really. I mean, in terms of kind of the variety that he brings to the table, there's a long way to go there, but I think there's a tremendous amount of upside there. The other tight end in this group I really like, Amar, is, this is going to make Tad very happy, is Jared Wiley out of TCU. I just think he's, between
our
the
offense
6'7",
would have fallen apart without that man.
No, I mean, he's 6'7", 260. He had 47 catches this year, over 500 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's very athletic, really good hands, tight ropes the sideline. He's got size, he's got speed. There's athleticism there. I think he could step into the right situation and be a tremendous impact player next year in his rookie year in the NFL. He's got all the tools and the production. He was a winner last year with Duggan and TCU. I really like what I saw on tape with Jared Wiley. Really athletic guy, and I think flying under the radar. Then I think there's, two guys here, Amar, that are more, sort of they know their role. I like Theo Johnson of Penn State, big kid, 6'6", 264. He had 7 touchdowns this year at Penn State. He's kind of one of those red zone specialists. You sort of run a seam route in the red area, and he's going to be like a really good blocker at the NFL level. And so between the blocking and the red zone, and I think we've seen it in the playoffs this year, the difference between teams that are playing in the Super Bowl versus teams that are out in the first round or not even make the playoffs, oftentimes it comes down to red zone execution. So I think there's a slot for Theo Johnson in the NFL. I don't see stardom, but I think he can be a very solid player. And then kind of a clever guy is Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. He was also kind of very productive this year, 49 catches, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns. But Kansas State almost used him as like a 245-pound slot receiver. It was very interesting. He was sort of Wes Welker if Wes Welker was 30 pounds heavier. They ran much more complicated routes
coming
for
at
him.
You if you're a defender.
They ran much more complicated routes for him. So I kind of see him more as this sort of hybrid slot tight end type of guy, where with the right offensive mind in the NFL, I think he could be a really valuable piece, but I don't know if he's kind of your traditional tight end. But if you can see the vision of how to use him, he can be very productive. And then there's the 2 guys in the Big Ten, AJ Barner from Michigan and Brevin Spann-Ford from Minnesota. Both those guys, big bodies. I think they're more projects. They'll probably make an NFL roster. If they do, kind of more for their blocking ability. So that's where I kind of see this tight end group, particularly in the Senior Bowl.
You forgot a school, Jamal.
What did I forget?
Iowa. Iowa doesn't have a tight end this year?
No Iowa tight end here.
Iowa averaged like 5 points a game. If they have any offensive player in this year's draft, I made this joke when we did our first mock draft on the show. Iowa's MVP was their punter, Torrey Taylor, who, by the way, is actually really good. I actually really like Torrey Taylor. But because he had so much practice, he is amazing. That Iowa offense this year, my God.
They've always been like that, though.
I know.
Real quick.
It was
real quick.
really bad.
I unfortunately have to bounce, but I love all you guys. Have a great rest of the stream. Enjoy the game, and we'll all talk throughout the day. But thanks for having me on, and keep this thing going. Love it.
All right.
No, appreciate you coming on even just for a little bit, Ryan. You're the man.
Once you logged up, once you said you had to go, Ryan, we lost the viewers. So you had a fan that left too.
It was Mia in the other room.
There you go. Exactly. He had his wife watching in the other room.
Exactly. Except they never watched, so I know it wasn't them. All right, guys. Thanks, guys. Have fun, but I'll be tuning in when I can. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Ooh, I almost hit the end stream button. I'm not in
Whoa,
control.
whoa.
All right.
Whoa.
Leave studio. I'll see you guys.
The viewer numbers went up after he said that. I was like, no, don't end it. But no, in all seriousness, though, we're not going to discuss this in length for obvious reasons. Torrey Taylor, that is a good punter. That is, for the first time ever, I will say this. That is a punter/kicker I endorse drafting.
So I think we got a touchdown here.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That throw was
Bo Nix throwing a touchdown here, too. I'm trying to see.
The tight end.
That's the tight end. Yeah.
The tight
He's
end.
the big body right there. The blocking formation got his 2-yard touchdown. There you go.
Jamal, just start talking about people and let's see if a lot of good things start happening.
That literally looked like every touchdown Spann-Ford ever caught in college. It verbatim, 2-yard bootleg, low ball, and he found a way to make it done. So well done.
and behind too.
And behind.
That was not a good throw.
Bo
Yeah,
Nix
so that was a good adjustment by the tight end for sure to make that catch and sort of fall back and make that catch there. So yeah, not bad at all. And I love the helmet with the golden gopher right there.
Absolutely.
It's not the M or whatever. Like that one's nice. That one's nice.
Am I doing this? Like, am I imagining this, or do they purposely make the head of the gopher look like an M?
Oh, I think
might
so.
have done it on purpose. It's like one of those
things so.
things
I
that a
may
lot of
be
people like
imagining
to do.
that. I'm not
Possible.
sure. God knows I
think
did not
so.
watch any Minnesota football this year, so this is my first time.
We might get a close up here if we're lucky enough, but yeah, maybe not. But just I mean, seriously, I mean, just like Al said to Jamal, you sort of put it out there in the universe, and then we got to score by the tight end there. So yeah, impressive stuff here.
Oh, is it Joe Milton time? Interesting.
Yeah, Milton's turn.
No, it was funny actually. So I was scouting Joe Milton a couple nights ago, and I was thinking, like, how does Tennessee? And I won't reveal my source. I have a source close to the Tennessee program. I'll say that. And
yes, let's keep out of the hush there. Tal.
Yeah, and especially with the current news going on. I don't know if you guys saw those headlines. But it was funny because he was a big fan of Henry.
Everyone, it's Tad's bookie, just so everyone is clear on who that is.
He is a junkie, so I mean that is fair. That's a fair assumption to make.
Gives me good odds. The best odds.
It was his vape supplier.
Wonderful sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the only person that will beat my bookie at Tennessee. But no, it's funny because me and Amir, we were both huge fans of Hendon Hooker last year. I remember I was out with friends last year. It was Saturday night at like 1 a.m. I started getting texts from Amir be like, Hendon Hooker would be a first rounder if it wasn't for him being hurt. And I'm like, dude, I am out.
Accurate. Yeah, I remember I was watching tape on him late, and it was just like, yeah, this guy looks sensational. And then they followed up with a guy that a lot of people are talking about this college football season with Joe Milton.
And that was my point is
Joe Milton the third. Joe Milton the third.
JM3, baby.
Is the guy I know that works very closely with him says Milton's better. That Milton is a better player. He's a better student. So I liked a lot of what I saw with Milton. It's just he does everything good. He doesn't do anything great. Is kind of where I landed with him. Is just like, and I'm actually surprised he's showing off his mobility here with two, not straight rushes, but 2 rushes on this drive. He needs refinement is I think the best word for it. And so if he performs well today, don't be shocked if Joe Milton goes in the 2nd or 3rd round.
And Ted, I don't want to cut you off here, but speaking about performing well, I mean, we were sort of talking about him earlier, but Amani Bailey is really making it.
I'm trying not to be a homeboy right now.
I mean, there's he's the early front runner for MVP in this game.
I know.
He had a lot of big runs to start the game, and then Joe Milton is looking his way as far as these dump off passes. But I wonder if that sort of attributes, Tad, to what you were saying about Joe Milton, where it's like he does a lot of things good, but maybe not necessarily great. So I mean, maybe he's going through the progression, maybe he's not looking through it as well as maybe you'd want him to. And so that's why he's fine taking that check down. So, I mean, based on the tape that you saw, did you see that more often where he was sort of going for that check down more often as opposed to going through the progression? Or is this just sort of like based on what he's seeing in today's game specifically?
Not so much. So he wasn't panicky from what I saw. So let me pull up my notes for him real quick. So this is an American team, right? So let's see with Joe Milton.
America.
This is a big thing is he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. That's I actually forgot about that. So he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. This is probably what's happening right here. This is my 3rd note for him. He's only had 1 full year as a starter. So he was a transfer to Tennessee. Then he had to sit behind Hendon Hooker. So maybe that's what's at play here. Is like maybe he's just not used to having to go through his progressions like that. So with his age, his and actually this is exactly what another note I have. His pocket presence really impressed me. He has good pocket presence. He doesn't panic. He's not that type to kind of be like, oh my God, and then check down to the running back. So my guess is this is just him being like, hey, you know what? Just give me, what they're, I'll take what they're giving me. So I'm not taking this as a negative, but he's got to show me something good to really increase his stock. Because right now his stock is like, solid mid-rounder. And, Grant, we're going off 5-6 plays right now. That's what he's showing me right now. A solid mid-rounder.
All right.
Chad, I totally agree with you. I just can't help but think, man, It would be brutal to be, Tad's teacher at a parent-teacher conference. Can you imagine a parent going up to Tad and being like, "How's my kid doing?" And Tad's answer is, he does everything pretty good, but not great. B plus student.
I always tell my students, I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to make you look bad, but I'm also not gonna lie to make you look good. Pizza conferences, I'm like.
You got a little bit of the glimpse here with Joe Milton because he made $1 million play avoiding the sack here, but then he follows it up with an absolute 10-cent throw. Like he had Monty Bailey wide open, absolutely short shades him, hits him to the left. And so, yeah, curious to see how this all progresses. But I want to kick it to Al here because there's been some secondary players that have been making some good tackles here. We had Cam Hart from the defensive back from Notre Dame. He had a big tackle on the running back Cody Schrader a handful of plays ago. Jalen Simpson was able to blow up a running back play as well. And then most recently, Joe Milton completed the pass to Ben Sinnott, the tight end that Jamal brought up from Kansas State. But he was tackled by Cole Bishop, the safety from Utah. I know a lot of people are talking about him as being one of the best safeties in this year's draft class. So, I mean, just speak about the defensive back class because that was a position group that you got there. And just like any of those three guys or any other guys that sort of stick out to you in today's game that you think can make a name for themselves?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the guy from Utah. His biggest value is that he could play down the box, right?
And you can clearly see that on that play too. Sorry to cut you off there, but just like clearly Ben Sinnott caught the ball before the first down, but Cole Bishop really ran in and he was able to wrap him up. Good technique because he'll stop him before the first down. That's why they ended up punting here. So, I mean, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good. Cole Bishop. So anytime you could get a safety that could play in the box and could play on top of the defense, his value is extreme, right? Because now you can roll safeties and use them in both ways. Now, if he could cover, and I haven't saw any of his practice stuff, but if he could cover, he's an A+, right? He hits all three. He could tackle, he could play up top, keep everything in front of him, and he could cover. And so now you can put him on a slot receiver or a big tight end when you need to in certain situations. So Bishop's stock is high. I mean, he played for Utah. Solid defense, great tacklers. Like everybody knows what you're going to get out of the Utah guys, so that's great. The Hart guy, the thing that worries me about him is he's a little small, and then we saw that like he made the tackle, then he got hurt, right? So what's going to happen when what happens when he tackles a Bijan Robinson? What happens when he tackles a King Henry? The bigger backs in the league, you make a tackle, you get hurt. Size is a little bit worrisome for me, but at the end of the day, you just keep him on top of the defense. He doesn't really have to come down. He tackles receivers. Hopefully, DJ Metcalf doesn't have a thing against him and have to tackle any big receivers, right? Who's the third guy you said? I think the third guy is a little bit,
Simpson.
Yeah, he's a little bit under Hart. Bigger body, but he doesn't tackle as well as Hart, right? Hart can put it like this. Hart gains 15 pounds. He's now an NFL linebacker, right? He's an NFL linebacker. He's easily turns into 230. So that's another plus. Either because NFL linebackers today are 230. Simpson is not that big, but doesn't tackle as well. But also he does make tackles. He does play well. You could put him up top. So, if Hart's my number one guy. If I was to pick between those three, Hart would be the number one guy, and I saw him play because of the best conference that has decreased. It's not deceased. Is no longer there.
So we got Sam Hartman in at quarterback now, replacing Bo Nix to sort of close out the quarter here. But
I'll tell you real quick, I actually really like him.
Okay, all right. I actually wanted to talk about the receiver that the broadcast was talking about, Devontrez Walker. Unfortunately, Ryan was responsible for scouting wide receivers here. But Jamal, you're a pretty knowledgeable guy. I'm pretty sure you may know something about this guy because based on what I've seen with a few plays here, he almost caught a long pass from Sam Hartman. And then earlier in the game, he had a pretty long reception, almost caught that one as well. Like he just seems to be a speed threat, seems to be able to get open here. It looks like he's going that direction again. Throws it in double coverage, though. So, that's not going to help. But just, what can you speak about Walker? This seems to be a guy that seems to find a way to get open, and that's why Sam Hartman's looking his way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Devontrez Walker is one of the more underrated explosive receivers in America. The broadcast talked about it. 7 touchdown receptions in just 8 games. He was dinged up a little bit over the course of the season. But also the benefit of playing, so many times, folks, we focus on the quarterback that are pro prospects. but there's tremendous development for those receivers. When you've got a Drake May that you're playing with and you're sort of getting ready to play with a pro-style quarterback, it just sharpens your route running ability. It sharpens your ability to recognize defenses, explode off of, hip movement with defenders and whatnot. So this is a guy that I think is going to be a sneaky sort of mid-round pick that can come in and really be an explosive weapon for a team that desperately needs it. You think about a Pittsburgh, for instance. You think about a team that kind of requires a little bit more big play ability. Walker can kind of step in here and do some really nice things. I like his size. Obviously, he's fast and he's quick. I think the only question is going to be once teams sort of get a sense of him being a bit of a deeper threat and they lay off of him, is he going to be able to sort of go across the middle on the underneath stuff and be able to make them pay and take the contact? And then B, how is his ability from a catch radius standpoint with the contested deep balls? We saw a little bit of that in sort of with North Carolina, not as much. So I think that's the one thing that you're probably looking for. But at a mid-round selection, he's showing you enough where he's worth the risk to go see and get developed. So I really like what I'm seeing.
It's actually funny that you bring up the whole contested catches aspect, Jamal, because literally on the couple plays that we saw in today's game, like he had a one-on-one with the receiver and the ball was literally in his hands.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the defender just spooked him a little bit, but just he couldn't reel in that catch. And then also in the double coverage. Now, obviously it was double coverage, but it's like he didn't fight to try and make that reception. I know the pass wasn't all that great either. We'll get to Tad here in a bit to talk about Sam Hartman for sure. But just, you can see there, like specifically on the contested catches aspect, which you brought up. It's like you're seeing that in the game here. So yeah, hopefully he can sort of fix that going forward. So we're coming to, we ended the first quarter just now with the tie score of 7-7 between the American team and the national team. And I think this is a good transition point to sort of talk about, we haven't brought them up yet, or I think Ryan brought him up really quickly, but we haven't dove into these guys. And we got a guy from the Salute to Troy podcast, and we have another guy from the Bruin Bible podcast. So we definitely, let's talk about some USC and UCLA prospects in today's game. And I don't know if you guys caught it, but I'm pretty sure you guys have some good notes on them. The guys that played in the East-West Shrine game as well. So Al, I know we sort of did a episode on your Salute to Troy podcast talking about some USC prospects. I'm pretty sure you got better notes on these guys. And so let's focus on the guys in the Senior Bowl today. They actually did a piece on Brendan Rice because Jerry Rice is at the game watching his son. In case you don't know, Brendan Rice is the son of the legendary receiver Jerry Rice. And so, yeah, he's talking about his son. So he is at the game. And then they also have the running back who's been killing it at practice all week based on what I've been seeing and based on what I've been reading. Marshawn Lloyd, the running back. So, I mean, Al, what are your thoughts on both of those guys? And, like, what do you feel about, like, their draft projection? Like, which rounds do you think they can go in?
So, Brandon Rice has also had a really good week, and the thing that's starting to come out about him is that he's faster than people expected him to be. He's running like a high 4.4, low 4.5, and with a little bit of training, if he's going back to Arizona, he's he might be able to get that down by the time the combine comes around. The thing that separates Brandon Rice from a lot of other people also is that he blocks really, really well. And he doesn't really get a lot of credit for how well he blocks. Separation is a slight issue. And I got that from my co-host on Salute to Troy, Jamal, Madman, and Maggie. Separation is a slight issue, but that's something you can work on. But to get to your question, where do I see him? Man, before I saw him as a Friday guy, but if he sneaks to Thursday, I would not be surprised. He's still a Friday guy, but after his week this past week, and people seeing him compete and showing him how he plays, I think somebody might take a flyer. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. But I definitely see him early Friday guy. He's a day 2 guy for sure now after what he's done. I don't know if he's not playing today. The earlier they say he's not playing, but I'm curious to see what he does in Indianapolis, and Indy's going to be a big one. Pro Day's going to be a big one, but he's early Friday, top second round receiver right now.
Okay. And then what about Marshawn Lloyd?
Marshawn Lloyd's unique because he's he has a bigger lower frame than most people think he has. He's a big, typical NFL running back. Like, he looks little up top, but he has a bigger lower frame, and he's fast. He's explosive. He has a bounce problem, though, if that makes sense. He wants to get to the corner instead of hit the hole. And
yes,
so
I did notice that when I was watching tape on him too. That makes
and
sense.
so in the NFL, that bounce is not there unless you're really fast or unless you're Eric Dickerson. And Eric Dickerson is generational talent, right? So
true.
If he can learn to become a downhill running back, oh man, because he could catch really well too. So my comparison is like Marshall Faulk. You could put him in a screen game, inside zone. He's really versatile because you could also split him out and put him at slot receiver, and he can run routes and get open, not deep running routes, anything, 5 below. He could get open and make plays from that. So Marshawn Lloyd, it all depends on his evaluation. He had a really good week too, right? So their stock is moving up. So it's just really based on what they do in Indy, what they do at Pro Day. And both of those guys, I can see them both being high Friday guys.
I like it.
Pending their evaluation
for
with
sure.
Pro Day and the Combine.
Makes sense.
Jamal, you have a rebuttal to that? Jamal's also still the Detroit guy.
It's Jaheim.
Jamal's sort of like the baseball term. He's like the utility guy.
I'm the utility guy.
Detroit,
I'm the
side guy.
I'm the seventh inning reliever for LA Football Network.
You got him covered, man. So yeah, what do you got on the USC guys, Jamal?
Well, while you were talking, Omar, Jaheim Bell, my guy, made another nice catch
there.
With the hands. That was a little
really
Debo-ish, man. He was strong with the ball there. So that was nice.
Bill's making some nice throws as well.
What's interesting? Every time Jamal says something about a guy, big play. Every time Taz says something about him, I'm just saying.
The one time I decided to say something nice about a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah.
I like Sam Hardy throws a fucking goose out there.
He does. That's actually one of my notes. It's like, he's really good. I like his pocket presence, but good God, does he float a lot of his passes.
Yeah.
And you saw that on the couple throws that he had deep. It was just like, it looked like an absolute dud. Like it was just like easily could be picked off. Yeah.
Sure.
Breaking
well,
news.
I'm gonna just to pick up on the SC guys. No, I completely agree with Fred. Brendan Rice had an interesting career at SC. He was lost in the depth chart. He blew up in last year's Sugar Bowl against Tulane and really kind of unveiled his ability to catch the ball with his hands and his speed. He had a drops problem early in his career at SC, and then that sort of translated. The high production and the momentum from the Sugar Bowl translated into this year. He was wide receiver number 2 for SC. I think what works really well with Rice, he's got kind of all the tools. He's got size, he's got the speed, but he's got straight line speed. I think the question is, laterally, can he break in and out of cuts as quickly? And that's where the separation problem has existed. Every time SC kind of ran a play action go route, he was able to create separation for himself. But if it was anything that required some lateral movement, there was a challenge there. I still have some questions about his hands in kind of contested environments. I think that's where he's made the biggest jump, particularly this week in the Senior Bowl. I agree with Fred. I'm not maybe as high on him as a second rounder. I think he's going to be late third, early fourth. But I think he's got all the tools to be a very reliable receiver. I think the guy who actually has a greater upside in the NFL for me is Taj Washington, just given that sort of slot role. Taj Washington, to me, was the best blocker USC had this year at the wide receiver position. His ability to kind of get open underneath as well as be able to sort of go deep. There's a versatility there with Taj. You combine that with his ability to block. When you get him in terms of wide receiver kind of stack situations, the pick, non-pick in the NFL, all of those sort of bunch formations, I think Taj Washington could have a really nice career with the right system there. And then with Marshawn Lloyd, I had said that he was the most talented back USC had since Reggie Bush and Lendale White. When you talk about everything that he was able to put together, he had 820 yards rushing this year on 7.1 yards per carry. The biggest gripe I think most of us had covering USC this year is just Lincoln Riley didn't give him the ball enough. And obviously there was a challenge, to Fred's point, of his unwillingness always to sort of hit the hole. But when you talk about kind of the size, you talk about the feet, you talk about his hands and his ability to catch out of the backfield, his ability to kind of completely turn his hips and be ready for yards after the catch. and just even upper body strength to be able to shed off the initial tacklers. There's a lot of talent there, and he was named team MVP this year in practice over the course of this week. This week's team MVP for the Senior Bowl. So a lot of high praise for Marshawn Lloyd. He also came from South Carolina, had to learn a new system at SC in 1 year. So he's already in that learner's mindset to be able to go into the NFL and get a new opportunity and learn the playbook quickly. So I think Marshawn Lloyd is sort of a diamond in the rough here.
Great points
Amir,
there.
I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
But Cliff Kingsbury pulled out of the Oakland thing.
I was actually just about to bring that up. Yeah, so you beat me to the punch there. But really quickly, just to close things out of Brendan Rice, it's actually funny that you bring that up, Jamal, about just his separation issues. Like I said, they're interviewing Jerry Rice right before the game started, and he specifically said that about his son. He's like, that's something he can work on, because clearly you have a Hall of Fame receiver and a legendary guy in Jerry Rice. He's probably working on this stuff with his son. And so he said there's a lot of things to like about it. But yeah, one of the things that he brought up was like he could still use some help separating from the defensive backs to really get that true separation to get open for receivers there. But before we get to the Cliff Kingsbury news, because
that was a good bait
news here, Al, we just had a turnover by unfortunately Joe Milton threw this right into the end zone, but he threw it to the safety from Oregon. Evan Williams was able to come in with an interception here. So I mean, just Al, can you speak a little bit on Evan Williams and what are your thoughts? Because he clearly, you see it on the replay, he cut from all the way from the sideline all the way inside to pick up the receiver, and he was able to force that interception. Now, I will say Joe Milton should not be making that throw across his body to the other side of the field, but still impressive range by the safety Evan Williams for the University of Oregon.
Yeah, so Oregon's defense is no slouch, and so I'll just say this to cover Oregon, Alabama, Georgia. That match coverage puts you in a very good advantage because you don't know if it's zone or if it's man, right? The rules are if anything's over 5, it turns into man. If it's under 5, you play your zone, right? So you're either playing the type of cover 3 or you're playing man coverage. That was an excellent bait. That's an NFL bait right there. He sat there, had the quarterback thinking, but he had his eye on the receiver the whole time. As soon as you saw those shoulder shift, he broke on that top shoulder of the receiver. Those guys who play in that system puts them in a pro advantage right away because there's a lot of man in the NFL, right? And there's a lot of baiting that you have to do like that. And they can look you off really. The look-offs in the NFL are way better than the look-offs in college, right? Up the game. So he's at advantage. That's really good. I think he has a chance. It's just, where does he go? It's all based on fit because you still have the old school defensive coordinators that want to run cover 2. And I don't see him as a cover 2 guy. He's a man safety, right? And he has the ability to play and to cover slots. So a lot of put it like this: a lot of the Pac-12 safeties have abilities to cover slots because of a lot of what you saw this year, because in the pass happy league. But if he ends up in a cover 2 system, I don't think it'll work out for him. If he goes to a man system, he'll succeed very well.
So yeah, let's get to that breaking news because Al was trying to bring it up before, but we were in the middle of a conversation about USC prospects here. But
I apologize about that. That is
no, you're good. You're good. It's always good to alert the folks here on the live stream as far as breaking news, because literally came across the ticker. And I think you're ahead because I didn't see that until maybe 10 seconds after you were sort of bringing our attention to it. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? So, but yeah, as Al sort of laid out there, Cliff Kingsbury, who is rumored to be a contender to be the offensive coordinator for Antonio Pierce at the Las Vegas Raiders, he has now withdrawn his name from consideration for that position. And so you wonder, guys, I mean, Tad, you haven't spoken in a while. It's actually kind of surprising. And it's kind of actually nice to not hear your voice after so long, too.
He just doesn't want to curse any of the players. He says anything, it goes south.
But Tad, I want to get your opinions here. Why do you think he decided to withdraw? Do you think he just didn't like the position? Do you think he wants to go back to USC? Because obviously he is formerly a advisor there and, offensive sort of, assistant there with USC. So it's just do you think he goes back to school? Do you think he goes to another OC position? why do you think he withdrew himself?
I blame the Raiders, as you should with most things. I mean, why would you want to go there? The Raiders, they're not in a good position to get the quarterback they sorely need. Nothing against Aiden O'Connell, but he is clearly not the answer. So what do? Do you depend on Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't think you can really do that. Devontae Adams is, I won't say prima donna because I actually don't really blame Devontae Adams for being upset with his current position, but that could be an issue going forward. That Raiders ownership between the Gruden thing and the Josh McDaniels thing, like that is a what's the word? Turbulent ownership, to say the least. So it's just like, why put myself in a bad situation when I am sitting at a school that is about to go to one of the Power 2 conferences now, is about to be, one of the main players there. I can get a lot of the credit for when or if we succeed. It just seems like sit for a better opportunity. Don't jump at the first opportunity to get back to the next level, especially with this one, because again, and this is what bad ownership does. We saw it with the Panthers where their head coaching hire was suspect, I think to say. It's just like, it wasn't a bad hire. The Buccaneers offensive coordinator, like, it's solid hire. He, did do a lot with Baker Mayfield, but at the same time, I was like, was he really ready? He went from position coach to head coach in about 2 years. So it's just one of those things where like bad ownership scares coaches away. And I think that's what happened here.
And really quick, before I pass it to either Al or Jamal here. So you're bringing up like they're not in the best spot as far as the draft is concerned, but they're picking at 13. So it's actually not that out of the realm to like sort of see them jump into the top 10 to get a Jaden Daniels, maybe even move up further and get into contention for a Drake May, possibly a Caleb Williams, especially if the Bears, like we'll bring this up later, but especially with the Bears on the clock at number 1 again, do they hang on to that pick or do they trade it out? The Raiders could possibly be in that conversation to acquire that number 1 overall pick and then take Caleb Williams. Like, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but just like they're not in as bad a position to upgrade at the quarterback position, especially through the draft if they want to do that.
There's a competition there, though, right? They're not like the Raiders or the Raiders. They are the Raiders. They're not like the Patriots or the Commanders where they're sitting there in the top 5 and like
that's fair. Yeah.
If worst case scenario happens, something is gonna be, someone is gonna be there for them. But like if they don't make some massive franchise changing moves, you're right. They're sitting there at 13. Who's going to be available by then? JJ McCarthy, who I'm not convinced is, a franchise quarterback. Like that's why I think it's not as an appealing position as some may chalk it up to be.
Fair. So obviously, Al and Jamal, like we're hitting on these USC topics.
The one thing I want to say about the Raiders situation, it has a tremendous impact on LA football. And how it does have a tremendous impact is Chip Kelly interviewed twice for the Raiders offensive coordinator position before Cliff Kingsbury ultimately took the job and now has withdrawn. And so I think the Chip watch here in Los Angeles is officially underway, with Kelly potentially going to the NFL as an offensive coordinator, either with the Raiders or with the Commanders. The Raiders just hired Deshaun Foster, UCLA's prized running backs coach, as running backs coach in Vegas. And so we're officially on Chip watch here. And I think there's really a changing of the guard here with UCLA. It looks like there's been really an urgency from Chip the last couple of weeks to leave UCLA and go back to the professional rankings. I think a lot of that has to do with stability in the athletic director's office at UCLA. There's kind of been a domino effect where athletic director Martin Jarmond was in line to get the Ohio State athletic director job. And now, since he was passed on that, I think now he is looking at UCLA as more of a long-term solution for him. And as a result of that, now he is more empowered to be able to make the changes that he wants to make. And so the domino effect here is, I think there's a very real possibility that Chip Kelly, A, takes this Raiders job, and B, UCLA, of course, will be in a kind of head coach search mode here in the next couple of days.
All right.
This late in the game, who are they going to hire?
It's late in the game. I'll let Fred do his thing, but I think there's a couple of names right now where, A, you've got David Shaw, whose son plays for UCLA right now. And when you talk about a coach that knows how to navigate kind of the academic rigors and, be able to put a winning product on the field, no one greater than David Shaw in that regard. And then the one that could really set LA on fire. It's a little bit far-fetched, but it is a flashy hire. It is possible. How about UCLA go get Pete Carroll?
awesome. I
Going
would
across
You want
from
to talk
USC to
about putting
UCLA.
you want to talk about
Wow.
making the rivalry on fire again. Pete's looking for a job. He wants to be a head coach again. He doesn't want to be a director of fundraising or an advisor or anything. He's looking for a job. He's got a house in Manhattan Beach, another one in Malibu. Pete Carroll to UCLA would set UCLA football and LA football on fire.
Jamal, you see what I'm doing? You see what I'm doing,
30
Jamal?
viewers.
I'm reaching. I'm reaching here.
We just hit 30 viewers the second you said that. So.
I think it's for the viewers because Jamal knows where Pete Carroll lives. So it's like they're trying to find Pete Carroll's actual house.
Hey, so the Cliff Kingsbury thing is interesting to me because two things pop in my mind. One, what does he have working? Because there's a new cycle that's going to happen with coaches getting fired after Tuesday. Right, so Tuesday is National Signing Day, and there's not a slew of coaches, but there's a good number of coaches that get fired after National Signing Day, and not head coaches, but in position roles and things like that. So that's one. Two, there's also going to be another shift as far as who's going to get picked up as far as coordinators and things like that for these new coaches that just got hired with Seattle and the Commanders. There is a big connection with Dan Quinn and Pete Carroll with the Commanders, Jamal. So I wouldn't doubt it if Pete Carroll becomes a DC for the Commanders. That's a possibility. I don't know how likely it is, but that is a possibility. The Pete Carroll thing to UCLA actually works because it's about putting butts in the seats. It's about putting your name out there, and it's about you're going to a conference that is now a super conference, either one or two. Nobody knows where that super conference stands, but you are in a super conference now, and eventually you're going to have to win ball games. I could see that happening. He loves Southern California. He could recruit like no other. That's not a far fetch. It doesn't matter that he's at UCLA. It will set LA on fire, but that's also people who don't understand. If the check clears on Friday, I don't care where I'm working as long as the check clears. You know what I mean?
And
So
this is an important thing to notice too. Is notice how after the Dan Quinn hire, everyone was saying, "Well, what about Belichick, Vrabel?" No one was saying, "Well, what about Carroll?" So Carroll's name is not on the hot market as like, "Oh, we need to hire this guy right away." But the funny
his heart is, his heart is in the NFL. He wants to coach in the NFL again. I just don't know if the NFL's heart is in Pete Carroll right now,
Well,
and it's sort of the Geno Smith line. They called, what was the line where they called me, I didn't call them back, or they wrote me off, I didn't write them back. But no one's writing Pete Carroll back right now in the NFL. And I know he's got a lot of juice left. And wouldn't it be an incredible end to his career? He's one of only 3 men in the modern era to win a Super Bowl and a national championship. He obviously was a decorated coach at the USC dynasty in the last 50 years. I mean, it's defined by Pete Carroll. What if he were to resurrect UCLA football as his last act as a coach?
Well,
I mean, it's sort of legendary status at that point.
And he definitely hasn't juice left because from reports, that's what happened. Is he told them, "I'm going to retire at the end of the season," and then like with 2 games left to go, he was like, wait, no, never mind. Like, I want to keep doing this, and they were like, "Well, dude, we've already like started the search," which I feel like the Seahawks could have, been like, "Oh, okay, we'll bring it back." But it also seemed they were kind of done with him anyways. It was one of those things where like, an employee quits and you're just like, well, I was about to fire you anyway. So, all right. Yeah, that works. But no, I think that's the thing is like, yeah, his stock for whatever reason is not that high. And so for people being like UCLA, like that, he's above them. No, he's not. Because this like no one else is really like dying to hire Pete Carroll right now. So that is a fascinating one.
That doesn't make sense to me because if you look at the last 5 years of Pete Carroll to Bill Belichick, right? Let's just take this.
Never been bad. Pete Carroll has never had a bad season.
Never had a bad season. Like take the Super Bowls away. They're both Super Bowl winning coaches, right? We could check that box. They're both very sound defensive coaches. Let's check that box. The thing is, Pete had control of his roster. Belichick had control of his roster. Who do you give the check to? Pete or Bill Belichick? You'll give it to Pete.
100%.
Hold
on, real quick. Who do I trust more? The coach who took DK Metcalf or the coach who trusted Devontae Parker to be their number 1 receiver? Let me measure that one first.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. When you look at the last 5 years.
Harry, who was a bust too.
Oh, God.
Nikhil Harry. But when you look at the last 5 years of those 2 guys' careers with rosters that weren't great, Pete Carroll has had more success in the last 5 years than Bill Belichick. And for you to say we don't want Pete anymore, but we want Belichick, is that you're looking at, and Jamal hits me on this all the time when we do our podcast, you're looking at the past and you're looking at all the national championships, but that window is closing, and it's closing fast. If you want something, if you want to flip it, Pete Carroll is your guy, and I think the championship, the glare from the Lombardis are blinding people. Pete has taken a JV team to the playoffs, right? They missed the playoffs with a JV team by a game last year. They've never had a bad season. I think his last 5 years, Pete has actually had all winning seasons, and Belichick didn't. We have to be realistic what we got here. Belichick's not a good GM. He's a football guy, but Belichick wants to have control of the roster. It's not going to work. Pete is the guy that everybody should be going to get.
And we have a perfect head-to-head example. Unfortunately, I have to give him her credit here, where, this was our big draft debate all offseason last year, where it was Devon Witherspoon versus Christian Gonzalez. And lo and behold, Witherspoon went to the Seahawks, Gonzalez went to the Patriots, and who was better? Witherspoon by a mile. That dude was a monster this year for Seattle. And
Gonzalez was really good too, but unfortunately he got hurt.
Yeah, Gonzalez wasn't a bust. He was really good as well, but Witherspoon was much better. And so, yes, Murray, you call that right. Shut up. But bottom line being is that Pete Carroll, and you look at some of those, Seattle draft classes over the last couple of years, Pete Carroll recognizes talent. He is 100% a better, talent recognizer than Bill Belichick. Belichick, I think, gets too uppity for his own good. Honestly, I know it's the joke. He should just let his dog do the drafts for him.
I love that dog.
I love the dog, but it's just.
I love the talking guys, but yeah, go for it.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I'm not being a homer. I'm just being a realist. I think we just get enamored too much into Belichick's 6 Super Bowls, right? And we get enamored in that, but we're not looking at
6 Super Bowls. It's Brady's 6 Super Bowls. I think we've proven that at this point. And I used to say it was Belichick that made Brady, not the other way around. And Brady has woohoo.
Well, Belichick 29 and 38 as a head coach since the Tom Brady era. So I think Belichick still has a lot to prove.
All credit where it's due. I was all aboard the Brady is overrated train. As always, he proved me wrong, and that he's an asshole. I hate it.
There's another quarterback that's trending on. There's another quarterback that's trending on Brady's line, and he's not getting that credit. Just want to let you guys know that there's another quarterback trending. There you go. Come on, there you go.
Go for it, Murray. I see.
Well, the one thing I'll say, Fred, is if Brock Purdy. Look, remember what the first Super Bowl for Brady was, right? Everyone sort of forgets this. It was Greatest Show on Turf with Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, and he had the huge upset. So when you're talking about the comparison, Purdy trying to beat Mahomes and Travis Kelce is sort of eerily similar. I know the Chiefs aren't the same Chiefs offensively as they were in the years past, but when you talk about kind of the superstardom, it was a very similar situation of Brady beating the Greatest Show on Turf and effectively ending that dynasty before it got started and began his own. So, hey, does history repeat itself a little bit? I don't see it with Brock Purdy, to be very honest with you. I think he's a game manager, and it's one good throw, one bad throw, one good throw. I think the Niners have got every bounce their way this playoffs, which is maybe some poetic justice from the last 8 or 10 years. Shout out Kyle Williams. But, I think there's an opportunity to see, he's got the stage, Fred, to your point, to sort of prove that wrong.
Well, last year he should have. I think they would have won the Super Bowl last year. Just being honest with you, he gets hurt, third play of the game. He would have won the Super Bowl last year, right? And I know it's what ifs and those types of things, but be realistic. He got hurt the third play of the game. They didn't have a quarterback. Defense was on for a very long time. It is what it is. But last year he gets hurt third play of the game. Now all of a sudden he's back in the same situation, stays healthy the whole year. He's going to the Super Bowl. Will he win this year? I don't know. Last year, I think he would have won, but I
was think Fred, or is what you're saying is was the Ayuk catch the equivalent to the Patriots tuck rule? You know, was that the start? Was that the start of something very special?
I'm just saying. All I'm saying is that Brock Purdy is trending like Tom Brady.
That was like a McDonald's commercial. That catch off his face.
That catch,
nothing but catch.
Detroit's about to lose this. I had a feeling that
it was the ladybug. It was the ladybug.
I love all the talk here. It's been fantastic, but I do want to bring things back to the
Summer's like, let's
Bowl.
get it back on.
I'm sorry
you guys
about
have
that.
run off the rails.
No, it's all good. It's all good conversation. I love it all for sure. But I do want to bring it back to the Senior Bowl here because unfortunately, Sam Hartman. I mean, Tad, I don't think you got a chance to speak much about this guy, but just like his draft stock, based on what I'm seeing, is really declining because I mean, there's a lot of just those bad throws I'm seeing. We just had a bad throw where I'm pretty sure he could have had a touchdown to the tight end for Michigan here, and just he overthrew him. And it's just like I'm very surprised to see that he's struggling so mightily here.
No, it's funny because I saw him on the roster, and I was like, okay, let me watch Sam Hartman. I'm not expecting that much out of him. And the more I watch this tape, I'm like, he's actually pretty good. Like, why isn't he being rated higher? And this is why. Is like he goes through these ebbs and flows of he'll play really, really well, but again, and we mentioned this about what feels like an hour ago. The one thing I noted was while his pocket presence is very good, he is very calm in the pocket. He floats almost every single one of his passes.
Oh, clearly you can see that with all the throws today.
Exactly. Even if it's the easiest pass in the world, like the receiver's wide open, he doesn't zip it. Like the dude has no zip. Like it's just every single one is just like a duck.
That's what she said.
I was just like, that's right.
Dude has no zip.
And
that's Al's job, Jamal. That's Al's job.
That's just like he just floats every single pass. He has no arm strength. It's just if he could refine his game, his play style reminds me a lot of Gardner Minshew, where he does have mobile ability and kind of
locks like Gardner Minshew too. I don't know if he's
man. Omar
run his hands through his hair. He was like
in the game. Quickly, Walker again didn't come up with a contested catch. Kind of hit him in the hands.
No, exactly. But then also speaking to the fact that it's like he's still able to get open, like Tad is sort of saying, if you got a quarterback that can actually rifle that ball in there, potentially it's a touchdown. But with that sort of like that lame duck, that sort of looser pass, no zip on it, Devontae Walker still tried to make a great catch on that play, but just unfortunately couldn't reel it in with that pressure around him or whatever. But just like
His kickers are trash.
Man, the Stanford kicker over too is killing me over here. Jeez.
Is that his second miss? Did he miss the other one also?
No, actually, just bringing that up. Yeah, so we got the Stanford kicker. That's Josh Carty, I believe, is the last name here. I'm looking it up on the roster.
All we have at Stanford is the kickers in this game, and they're not delivering. God.
Joshua Carty, the kicker for Stanford, just missed it wide right. But earlier, Al, you're sort of bringing up the same kicker. No, it was the Alabama kicker. It was Evan Reichel, I believe you pronounce it that way.
I don't know. I'm not.
But he unfortunately clanked it. So it's like he hit the goalpost and it bounced out, unfortunately. Yeah. So the kicker's not making the kicks that they should be making.
But going back to Murr's point, though, is other than the kicker, Hartman has cost himself the most in terms of draft stock so far. Like, I don't know anybody else. There have been a couple of offensive linemen, but we'll touch on that a little later, probably in the fourth quarter. But man, Hartman's been killing his stock. Like,
but that's what I'll add about Hartman is I was really high on him at the start of the season as a potential dark horse Heisman candidate with Notre Dame. All
right, Amber's ahead of us.
You guys saw the play from
us. He's ahead of us. But the one thing I'll say, Tad and Amar, is it really speaks to the power of development at the college level because last year Sam Hartman had over 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns at Wake Forest. He was throwing the ball all over the place. The zip that was missing, Tad, this year, he had it last year. And it was he was lighting it up. And I think the fact that Tommy Rees left the offensive coordinator position at Notre Dame to go to Alabama last year really hurt, I think, Hartman's development. I don't think Notre Dame also from a staff perspective and a system perspective was ready to take his game to the next level. So it also goes to show in this world of the transfer portal, you got to pick the right situations to be able to develop yourself.
Oh,
got right
God.
situations here, Jamal. We're talking about the quarterback because we had that little bit like the ooh play.
I
because,
like him too.
Michael Pratt, unfortunately, Michael Pratt, the
the
quarterback through Tulane, unfortunately, is not making a good name for himself in 2 back-to-back plays. He almost had an interception off a tip drill, trying to throw it to the running back, Cody Schrader. Almost picked up by the safety that we were bringing up earlier, Evan Williams, the safety out of Oregon. So they almost picked it off there, but then here he mishandles the snap, fumbles the ball, and is recovered by the national team for a turnover here. So
this is how bad, to Ryan's point earlier, the USC defense was the last 2 years, because Michael Pratt led Tulane to 46 points on USC.
Wow.
The guy can't even snap the ball in this game.
I hate to cut you off here, Jamal, but it's like we just have a turnover now.
My Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman throwing an interception to the other side. So American gets the ball here again.
He's still on his.
Who is that?
That's Brownlee. I'm trying to find the name here.
I don't recognize that helmet.
Jarvis Brownlee, the defensive back from Louisville, just came up with the interception here. So yeah, back-to-back turnovers. Really, Sam Hart just absolutely tanked his stock. I mean, he is not playing.
He had a minute left in the half.
I think Al's sort of like prognostication is true. Everybody that you're bringing up, Tad, has just not been working out. But everybody else we're talking about has been working out so far.
Everybody call your friends right now and tell them to log on. We're going to see who Tad likes in the Super Bowl for Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah,
just go ahead and get that. And you're going to be the opposite. You're going to get really rich really fast.
Hartman's son, I'm like looking through all my notes right now, especially for offensive linemen. Like expect them to let up like 5 sacks in the second half. But
Al, as we sort of talk about this turnover here, Dad, I'll get to you in a second here. But yeah, we just got the turnover here by, like I sort of mentioned, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the cornerback out of Louisville. So what do you got as far as notes on him?
Yeah, so the good thing about him is that he's a Ron English guy, and Ron English had some time in the NFL. But Ron English is also a cover 2 dude, right? That's why he looks so great dropping into that zone right there. So he's gonna work great on. He'll be great on the old dogs who still want to run cover 2 too high in the NFL zone concept type of guy. He's kind of longer than puts on, and when I was watching him, he makes some plays, a lot of recovery plays. So he doesn't panic when he gets beat. He makes a lot of recovery plays. He did really good. You got to remember, Louisville was like top 20 in defense this year. I don't know if it was Ron English or just the dudes, but I think this guy is a late Friday guy just because he has a couple of peaking issues. But I see him being in the NFL, at least make it to a second contract because of the value he has and his lack of panicking.
All right. So we're coming to the end of the half here. Score is still tied at 7-7 because of all those turnovers that we had to close out the second quarter. So, yeah, so far, I think it's safe to say we're not huge fans of Sam Hartman so far. So he's got a lot to prove as the draft process moves along. We're liking Demontrez Walker, the wide receiver from North Carolina. He's been looking pretty strong there for sure. So those are some of the guys that we're liking through the first half here. But
Bailey's looked really good.
Amani Bailey has been looking really good too. He's made a name for himself in the first quarter.
Really good game as well.
Yeah, for sure. So let's I want to revisit a conversation. Unfortunately, we didn't get to finish the other half of the coin there. We talked about USC prospects. So we talked about Brandon Rice, talked about Marshawn Lloyd, but we definitely have to talk about the big name in today's game. 4's up for sure for Jamal, the UCLA defensive end edge rusher. I'm not sure how you want to label him, but he is a sensational pass rusher. I think that's for sure. Laiatu Latu, the guy playing in today's game. And then he's the only representative in today's game. So Jamal, feel free to bring up the guys for the Shrine Bowl as well. We got Darius Muasau. We got the Murphy twins, Grayson and Gabriel. And then we got the running back Carson Steele. So, I mean, what do you think about the UCLA prospects in these past 2 games? And yeah, definitely, I've said this before, and Jamal, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think Laiatu Latu will be the first pass rusher taken off the board and easily a top 10 pick.
You're absolutely right. He's the first pass rusher off the board, top 10 pick. He was the best player in Los Angeles this year. And so that's
Myles Turner. Hold on.
You
Why
know.
is he better than Dallas Turner? Because we had this mock draft episode. What was that like?
There you go.
weeks
That's a fair
ago?
question. That's a fair question. So
Why
I mean,
is he
yeah,
better than
Jamal, how
Dallas
do you think
Turner?
he compares to Dallas Turner? Because a lot of people have Dallas Turner as like based on mock drafts that I see. Tad clearly, obviously, a lot of people have Dallas Turner ahead of Laiatu Latu. So I mean, why do you think you give the shade to? And I think he's very much ahead of Dallas Turner as well, just based on the tape that I've
Very
seen.
much,
But you
really
probably watched
very
more
much.
of it than I have. So yeah, speak to Laiatu Latu as far as why you like
here's
him
the
more than
thing
Dallas
with Latu and where he's made the biggest jump from 22 to 23. And Will Decker, who couldn't be here, asked Latu a question at
Sorely
Pac-12
missed. He
Media
was a good
Day
dude, for sure.
before the start of the season and said, "Hey, what are goals for you?" And Latu said, I'm going for 15 sacks. And both Will and I were like, I love the confidence. Ooh, that's a big number. Ended up with 13 and a half. And what was so significant with Latu this year was in 22, he was a straight line pass rusher and, was very phenomenal in that way. This year, he's just added tremendous variety laterally. And when you talk about his ability to spin, when you talk about swim moves, when you talk about the things that he's doing with his hands, I mean, he's just a prototypical edge rusher. And you can put him on either side of the edge. You can even put him traditionally in the box, and he can kind of get through the line. And he's been able to shed double teams most of the season. He is a special player in every sense of the word, led UCLA's defense, which in 2022 was 87th in the country to 11th in the country this year. And he was the primary reason why. And then the other piece of it is just the tenacity and the resilience. This was a guy who was out of college football for 2 years with back injuries, with spine injuries. It looked like he was going to have to end his career. He stuck with it and had the faith, made the jump from the University of Washington to UCLA, and ended up being a 2-time All-American and, a perennial Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And so Laiatu Latu has just been so special, both on the field as well as off the field. When you talk about the production, but when you also talk about the character, you talk about the leadership, you put it all together. And then let's not forget, he did this in the best conference in America this year. When you look at the litany of quarterbacks, we talked about Bo Nix a lot. We've talked about Caleb Williams a lot. We talk about Michael Penix Jr. a lot. We talk about the Cam Wards. We talk about on and on the list we go. The Shedeur Sanders is. All of those players were in the Pac-12 that Laiatu Latu went up against, and he sacked every single one of them. So when you talk about being a guy who's pro-ready in terms of who he was facing on the other side of the ball, no question about it to me, Latu was absolutely significant. Dallas Turner is great, but he had a partner in crime at Alabama. Latu was a solo artist. The Murphy twins were terrific, but they were definitely Pippen and Rodman to his Jordan.
I have a question for you about Latu, Jamal. So Latu, does he fit better in 4 down or three down?
I think he fits better in 4 down.
So four he said fits better in 4 down. If he does go to a 3 down team, does he play the stand-up back or does he play the 4 tech with his hand in the dirt?
I think he's probably hand in the dirt. I think I think he can do both, but I think you can have him have his hand in the dirt for sure.
Is he big enough to play the 4 technique in a 3 down?
I think he's about 280, so it's he's kind of right on that line. But the one thing I'll say, Fred, is his first step is lethal, and when you can kind of set everything up with that first step, and then you can counter to the weak side, you can do some things with the spin. I just think he's got all the tools to be able to be very successful in the NFL, regardless of scheme.
All right, one more question, then Murray, you can take it. It's about because you was about to ask something. I cut you off. I apologize.
You're good. You're good.
The Murphy twins. Here's a very good question for the Murphy twins. They have been.
Al, before you get into the Murphy twins, I do have one more question about Latu and Jamal. You brought this
go
up
ahead.
Where he was sort of. Based on articles that I read, he was thinking about medically retiring because of all these injuries that he had. So do you think that'll scare off scouts? Like, I mean, he's been playing sensationally like these past couple of seasons at UCLA, like you sort of mentioned, but do you think that past injury history will creep up and possibly hurt him? And then kind of like Tad was saying, where it's like maybe a Dallas Turner will go ahead of him because some teams will be scared off. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? Like,
it's a great question, Omar. And I think it's the primary reason why he came back in 2023. He had a phenomenal 2022, and there was a conversation of him kind of going into the draft, being around a 3rd round pick. I think he could even snuck into the 2nd round last year based on how he would measure out and how he would play on the All-Star circuit. But I think he wanted to come back to put a 2nd consecutive season completely injury-free and put that complete body of work together to really alleviate any of those concerns. And so when you look at who he has been the last 2 years now, 25 games he's played the last 2 years, and he's had 23.5 sacks, no injuries. So I think he was able to put that to bed because that's a significant enough body of work.
100%. So Al, I think feel free to bring up your question. I think you were going to go for the Murphy twins there. And then, let's definitely talk about those East-West Shrine prospects. We got a lot of them in that one.
So for the Murphy twins, and this is like just a question I would ask if I was in the front office, right? If I'm a drafting. They've always been together their whole lives, right? And this is going to be the one time that they're going to actually be separated. They're not going to be playing together. Do you think that would affect them anyway? And I will use a different sport. The where's the name of those twins in the that played basketball?
The Lopez brothers.
Not the Lopez brothers. They did very well separate.
Markeith and
got the Cavender twins.
The Morris brothers. The Morris
twins. Yeah, the
Morris.
Was it Marcus? Marcus.
Yeah.
Marcus and Markeith.
Yeah. Once you separated the Morris twins, they weren't the same as they.
I'm going to take a break.
Once you separate the Morris twins, they weren't great together. Not like Brooke and Robin. When they separated, they exceeded very well. Do you think that the Murphy twins are going to be able to play away from each other? Because I know
what a phenomenal question. My God, you two are just sort of competing and one-upping each other like a slam dunk contest with the phenomenal questions. That's a tremendous question.
That could be Aaron Gordon here. I like it.
It's I love it. We got Levine and Gordon out here. So. It's 720 between both legs, is what's happening right now. But
Levine, UCLA guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, Fred, it's a great question. I think what the benefit that UCLA got over the last couple of years with the Murphy twins was the fact that they were twins and you could sort of rotate them out. And essentially you had one who was fresh throughout the whole game. They each were at about, between 3 and 4.5 sacks on the year this year. Were really nice. They've got really nice athletic pieces, but I agree with you. It's actually a concern for me. And I think it's a really astute observation. I think when you separate these guys, I think not having the other to sort of pick them up when they're down, B, even on the field, I think what made them very unique was sort of this package deal that you would get sort of really high quality front 7 play for the whole game. Now they're sort of relying on having to do it themselves. I think there's a lot there, but they're a lot more project right now at the NFL level. And I think there's a lot of upside, but they got to be in the right system, particularly given the fact that they're being separated. So we've talked about some teams. I mean, Raiders out, some of these teams where there's a lot more instability, you got to get out from those situations. You got to get to a place like the Chiefs or a place, potentially like the Colts, a place where there's, some organizational stability. So it's a great point, Fred. It's a concern for me for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's definitely talk about those other 2 prospects for UCLA from the East-West Shrine game. Carson Steele, the running back, and then Darius Buasau. Hopefully I'm saying that last name right, the linebacker from UCLA. I'll sort of save you a little bit here to Jamal. I sort of did a little bit of scouting on Carson Steele and just it's kind of funny because I was watching him run and he reminded me a lot of Isaiah Pacheco, where it's like, I know there's a lot of like memes and some gifs about him on social media about like his running style, but it's a very like, he's running like a bat out of hell. Like he's not graceful, he's not smooth, but he's effective as a runner. Like, I mean, he was still a great runner, and that's exactly what I see with Carson Steele as well. I saw a lot of good balance. He was stopping and starting like on a dime when he needed to, so he's getting some good moves there. He doesn't have that elite speed that you would want in a running back, so he's not going to be a home run threat like a Chris Johnson or a Devon Achane from for the Miami Dolphins here. But he does have, like I said, just everything that I saw, like very effective and just like very similar to what we were talking about with some of these quarterbacks. It's just like they're looking good, but not necessarily great at everything. So I think he has a lot of skills that I think can complement a backfield, but I just don't see that lead back mentality with Carson Steele. But Jamal, speak against that if you see anything wrong with anything that I dropped.
No, Amar, I completely agree with you. That was sort of spot on analysis and a beautiful segue because we're actually having Carson Steele on the Bruin Bible Monday night. So it's going to be a great conversation. there to kind of talk about his future. Completely agree with you. He came back, he was a transfer from Ball State in the MAC. He was there 3 or 4 years, was the 9th leading rusher in college football in 2022. And so he was the leading returning rusher to come back in 2023. He's a workhorse in every sense of the word, battering ram, not afraid of contact in any way, shape, or form. He has kind of the one gene that Marshawn Lloyd is missing, where it's just that willingness to just go in the center of the hole, to Al's point, absorb the contact, finish the runs. But you said it best, Amar. Even when Will and I were watching this team in spring, my one concern was his ability to set the edge, even in spring ball. And it just never quite happened where he could set the edge. So he had really good games against kind of more traditional in-the-box defenses. But when it was more athletic fronts that had more lateral speed and quickness, he really struggled, and UCLA had to rely on TJ Harden. I think he's a great kid, tough kid, runs really hard. Maybe there's a package element there. I think it's going to be a challenge for him to be drafted, but I think he's going to go into a camp as an undrafted free agent and really compete like hell for a job. Love everything about him. Runs really hard, but yes, I don't quite see kind of starter quality in the NFL. And then when it comes to Moasau, Amar, to your last point, this is a guy who, along with Latu, was sort of the leading head of the UCLA defensive monster. 3 years in college of over 100 tackles. The guy is super rangy, your traditional middle backer. His ability to kind of cover tight ends, cover backs out of the backfield, even sort of get, kind of chip some of the bigger receivers closer to the line of scrimmage. Sure tackler, his ability to read defenses, be a captain of a front seven out there is absolutely significant. Reminds both Will and I a lot of Manti Te'o, actually, when he was at Notre Dame.
Okay. Does he have a real girlfriend?
Oh, come on.
Fred going there. That's when you know. See, that's when you know the USC blood runs deep with Fred. Anytime they take a shot at Notre Dame, Fred's ready.
All right, real quick, I did tell this story. So I've been in one USC game my entire life. As my sister went to Claremont McKenna, which is a smaller school.
Great school.
Great school, 40 miles outside LA. So we went to go visit her for Thanksgiving one year. And I was really excited because, my dad and I were like, let's go see a USC game while we were there. And it was USC Notre Dame. And that was when Matt Barkley was at the top of his,
Matt Barkley.
Like, peak hype, where it was like, this is the next great guy. I was like, I get to watch Matt Barkley play, and he got hurt. So we had watch Mitch Mustaine play.
Mitch Mustaine, yeah. That was probably what the 2012 game, I want to say, Tad. Was it 2012?
Yeah. And I will never forget this. I was in the Coliseum, and I'm like, God, this is a great fan base. And Notre Dame was up at the half. And as Notre Dame's running in the tunnel, the guy behind me goes, pick a conference. And I was like, that is the most amazing fan heckling I've ever heard in my life. Of just like, pick a conference. It's like, I was like, wow, this is a real rivalry. Like, USC really does not like Notre Dame.
Well, it was a kind of an interesting. I don't want to segue Amar, because he's gonna yank me here in 30 seconds. But
you're good.
There's a lot of conversation recently about who is USC's true rival in football.
UCLA.
Is it Notre Dame or is it UCLA? And most USC folks feel like it's Notre Dame, and because those are the schools that you're competing for the championships, you're competing for the Heismans. The USC UCLA rivalry feels more like kind of the brotherly rivalry you have at the Thanksgiving table, or the cousin that you see that's always annoying you, or the little brother that's always annoying you. So it's a little bit more kind of fraternal with USC UCLA, just kind of splitting the city and everyone kind of crossing over. But USC Notre Dame feels a little bit more serious in terms of kind of playing for bigger things.
No, it's funny because it's the same thing with TCU. I notice that a lot, where people are like, oh, do you hate SMU? And I'm like, no, I don't really care about SMU. And they're just like, really? I'm like, no, like SMU, like that's the traditional TCU rivalry of like, yeah, in city of like who gets DFW, the Metroplex. But really, like the big TCU rivalry is Baylor. I hate it. can't stand them. Like that is the big rivalry. So I think I see kind of because speaking from someone outside of the LA, kind of
Sick 'em.
how dare you, sir? How dare you? But no, like I think it's kind of the same thing of just like, like the in-city rivalry is kind of fun and whatever, but it's just like there's a true rival outside of that because outside of LA, I'm telling you, most people think it's USC, UCLA. I didn't, and that's why I brought up that story is because I did not realize truly how much USC hates Notre Dame, and I think was Manti Te'o on that team?
He was. Yep.
He was. Yeah. So
I think Te'o had an interception in that game, if I recall.
I think he did. Yeah. And so like that was the thing is like that was the moment where I was like truly like, oh dear God, like no, you guys really hate them. And I'm like, this is a true rivalry. I thought it was kind of like a fun like, okay, we hate each other. And then like when I went to that game, I was like, oh no, you guys really hate each other. So no, that was a fun game. Also, the Coliseum is huge.
Yep. Used to be
massive. I remember so I was about, I guess like I was in the lower bowl section. I just kind of turned around. I'm like, this is
I mean, it used to seat too. Now with the boxes and all of that, it's at 77.5 now, so it's become smaller. But
it used to seat 90.
Beat days, there was not an empty seat there. I mean, 92.5 strong. I mean, that was quite the time.
But I remember a game. We were at a game and we looked up towards the torch because they were lighting the torch. And me and my buddy were talking. We were like, people are really sitting in that upper corner by the torch just to watch us play. That's crazy. Like I would not pay to sit in that upper corner.
And just for our viewers, when Al says "my buddy," he's referring to Taylor Mays. So
it wasn't Taylor Mays. It wasn't Taylor Mays.
Taylor Mays. Oh my lord!
That's how Al rolls. Okay, Al's buddies are not the same as our buddies. Okay.
So before we go any further, Jamal and Al, I just want to give a shout out to our wonderful viewers. And by the way, our viewership numbers have stayed very high. This very well could be our best performing one. As Amr said at the beginning, this is our third annual Senior Bowl live stream, and this is definitely going to be our best one yet. But and partially, I'm giving this guy a shout out because I love his name. Turn to Trojan on YouTube is asking, and because I don't have an answer to this. Turn Trojan is asking, why is it that Phil?
You can show it here.
Can drop. Oh, there we go. Why is it that Phil Knight can drop bags on all these high school recruits and transfers, but our 25 billionaires can't donate to the program?
This isn't. I'll let you go, Jamal. But you got to watch our show. And we didn't put the last show up, and we were actually just talking about this. So I'm in the theory of like the soul play. Hindsight being 2020, the soul play actually is a good idea now because there's a lot of schools getting in trouble for NIL stuff, right?
Tennessee, we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, and Iowa got in trouble. You see, look at Florida. Florida was complaining. Texas A&M was complaining, and so they were doing the slow play thing, and we were really crucial on them. And I mean, Phil Knight drops bags. We have 5 Phil Knights. Easily have 5 Phil Knights. Yeah. But the thing is, and I'm gonna steal Jamal's line, there's no ROI. You don't get your name on the building. You don't get anything out of it. And these people are looking for a ROI, but they're also looking for, if I'm going to invest my money, how do I know in 3 years the NCAA won't be in our stuff? Well, at least to another point, I think SC is slow playing it because they want to do it right. And I know Jamal disagrees with me on this one, and we should be in the forefront, but I'm taking the cautious conservative approach because of the NCAA pass violations, and we don't want here goes SC again in trouble. So I think they are going to get it right, but they want to do it right, and it's going to take some time. And so our billionaires will start dropping money, but Jen Cohen, I think, is doing a really good job of making sure this is right, and I think everybody at SC is doing a good job of making sure this is right. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Fred. And Turn Trojan, I encourage you to, subscribe to Salute to Troy with Fred, myself, Ryan Dyrud, because we get into this a lot in terms of this conversation. The one thing I'll say is the economics of college football have just changed so dramatically. And we've sort of calculated conservatively that you need 15 to 20 million a year in NIL, in just amount of money for signing some of these guys. Ohio State actually spent $13 million on 7 players recently. I mean, and so the amount of money that's now required every year it really has become just a billionaire's game, because the people that are required, you need 15 people that are given $1 million a year, or you need 30 people that are given $500,000 a year. I mean, even people that are making $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million a year can't afford that. It's really sort of a billionaire's game. So to your point, USC has 25 billionaires. I think it's 7th or 8th most of any school, no question about it. But when you break down who those billionaires are, a lot of Chinese billionaires who are very focused on energy and clean tech and, different tech industries. You've got a lot of folks in film, Lucas and Spielberg and Zemeckis, but they're more focused on cinema. There actually aren't a lot of USC billionaires that are exclusively focused on sports, as opposed to giving that money to the film school or giving that money to cancer research or endowed chair or social justice or advanced computing. Pick your cause. So Phil Knight is in a very unique position because he's 41 billion net worth. He's one of the richest people in the world, and he is in the business of sports, where him giving more money to Oregon generates that ROI for Nike, generates even more money in his pocket. Whereas the billionaires at USC, A, they're not exclusively focused on football, and B, it doesn't completely get back to their bottom line in the way it does with Phil Knight. And so this is where, even though USC has a lot of money in totality as a university, they are behind in the NIL game because they don't have the Phil Knight, and they also don't have kind of the cultural significance of football the way you do in the South with the Alabamas and the Georgias and the LSUs, or what you do in the Midwest with the Ohio States of the world. So this is why they're behind. Now, I think to Al's point, it's good in a sense that they're a little bit behind because they want to play the fast follower game. But at the same time, they're behind not because they're just consciously looking at who else is doing things. They're actually behind because they lack resources, as crazy as that is to sound.
So, all right. Well, first off, the second half has started again. Sam Hartman is unfortunately still in there. Also,
back at quarterback for the national team.
USCJ in the house.
Yeah.
USCJ, what up, USCJ?
That's awesome. Oh, USCJ, for folks that are watching our show, take a look at USCJ's podcast as well, Lost in the Sauce. He's absolutely fantastic. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. Great guy, great analyst, and can't have enough great things to say about USCJ. So happy you popped in there.
What up, Jay? What up, Jay?
Senior Bowl. But, I want to talk to you guys about a player that I really wanted to see play this week. Unfortunately, he is not. And I think, talking about guys that could have cost some draft stock during the bowl season, let's talk Michael Penix Jr. This is a guy that was flying high, in my opinion, should have won the Heisman. And, that national championship game, he looked bad. He looked really, really bad in that game against Michigan. And now he's kind of, I won't say costing himself, but he's not helping his case anymore to be a first-round quarterback. Is Michael Penix Jr., in everyone's opinion, a first-round quarterback? Remember, I haven't heard, you've been doing a great job hosting. I want to hear your opinion. Is Michael Penix Jr. a first-round quarterback?
And I think the tough thing with Michael Penix Jr., and I remember talking to Al about this before we recorded an episode with him on Salute Detroit, talking about the USC prospects. Against Texas, he could throw anything he wanted to because Texas defense was just absolutely porous. So it's like, you can see why a lot of people can see like that sort of Heisman quality as to why he probably should have won it. But then you put him against a tougher defense in Michigan that actually played a very good game in that national championship game. They put him out of his comfort zone. He was not making the throws that he was comfortable with. I know he did actually get hurt that game, so probably he couldn't be at his full effect that he probably wanted to be. But that Michigan defense is what you're going to see at the next level. And so that worries me a little bit as far as like, can he sort of be that same guy that we saw all of the regular season at the college level? Can he sort of do that against NFL defenses? Just like, I'm not sure he could sort of make that transition. And then the tough thing with the draft season is that he'll probably look good at shorts at the combine. He'll probably have a very structured pro day that'll make him look good too, but you're not going to actually see him go against a defense in a sort of a practice setting. So it's like, it's going to be hard for teams to sort of be like, well, we didn't see anything besides that national championship game and then what we saw over the entire regular season. So it's going to be hard for people to be like, can he make that jump? And so that's what worries me as far as like whether he could be a first round quarterback. I think he slides out of the first. He maybe is going to be an early day 2 guy, but I wouldn't surprise me if there's a team that just sees all these things that, like I said, unfortunately, a lot of scouts have recency bias. They're going to see him totally outperform at the combine. They're going to see him totally outperform at his pro day. And they're going to be like, you know what? We could trade him up. We could make him sort of dissect NFL defenses. And then, unfortunately, we'll see how it all plays out. But for me, if I were to draft him, I'd say early day 2. But I think he probably could have that talent where some scouts will see him and they'll be like, you know what? I like everything I see about him. We could work on the read and diagnosing and the progression, all that stuff, and we can make him an NFL quarterback. But for me, if I had to give an answer right now, I'd say early day 2.
So you're saying,
quick, Al, I just got to say that Luke McCaffrey catch was insane.
One-hander.
I mean,
is every McCaffrey just a baller? Sure. Is every
Good
McCaffrey
job.
just a baller?
and they're all smart too. Like what are they feeding these kids? All
Rice
these
I know
Rice
Stanford,
is
Rice.
to
These
be
are
as
elite
successful as
institutions,
McCaffrey.
ladies and gentlemen.
They have a girl. They had a daughter too that went to like one of these elite institutions. Also, I need to look it up. But like,
not only that, but Ed McCaffrey has a very successful. I swear to God, this is true because my college roommate, especially who's from Colorado, especially ordered this mustard. Ed McCaffrey has a very successful mustard line as well.
maybe it's the mustard.
Maybe it's the mustard.
Hey,
Because I remember there was a pack. I came
That
back
might
from
be the
class
next
one day.
LAFB shirt right there, like by Coach Rowe. Maybe it's the mustard.
Maybe
Maybe
it's
it's
the
the
mustard.
mustard. I came back from class one day and there was a box on the on the porch, and I picked it up and I opened it up and it was just like Ed McCaffrey mustard. And my roommate came home and I was like, "The hell is this?" He's like, "Oh, dude, McCaffrey's mustard's really good." So
Yeah,
like
pretty
not only does he have 4 successful children, now also he has a great business as well. But all right, Al, I think you were going to speak to it.
Oh yeah. So Michael Penix Jr. Did he practice? He practiced this week though, right?
He did practice this week.
Mhm.
He is not playing today.
So what was the rave about him at practice?
Up and down, I would say. He started the week off rough, but then he ended it fairly well where he was nailing a lot of throws. And that's the thing is like, and sorry, I'm going to butt in my own opinion here, is like Michael Penix, and that's the kind of thing is it was very hard because I watched all the tape of him because, quarterbacks was my position group, and I watched
That was good.
him, and I loved him. He was nailing all these deep throws throughout the season. I'm like, he's amazing. And now I watched the Michigan game, and I'm like, what happened? Like it was watching a totally different player during the Michigan game. And kind of like what Murr says, it's concerning because that Michigan game, especially if he gets drafted to a bad team, that's the reality you're facing. You're going to get pressured a lot. And he just sailed. I mean, it's all like Sam Hartman. It's like he all of a sudden turned into Sam Hartman where he was sailing on all of his passes. And he was just not putting the proper touch on his passes. And then he just had horrible pocket presence. Why is this man still in the game?
Oh, he's laughing at Hartman, isn't he? He's laughing at Hartman.
He
Yeah,
is.
Fred.
He is.
Fred's laughing
I
at
just
Hartman.
looked up and Hartman's back in the
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh,
I just saw it right now.
Good God.
He was open too. He was open.
Oh boy.
Oh, he fumbled it.
I'm sorry, Ted.
Take back everything good. No, I take back everything. This is why I like the Senior Bowl. I
Oh man.
about Sam Hartman before today. I take
Hey,
back what I said
Here's
before.
the good news about Sam Hartman. In a couple of months, there's a league that he could play in that he'll probably excel in.
XFL.
The
Yeah,
UFL.
Is it the
Oh, UFL, yeah.
UFL
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, maybe CFL.
Well, the one thing I'll say about Penix Jr., or just to sort of close the loop there, is he has the single greatest strength of anybody in this draft in his arm. And so
That's true.
when you talk about the arm, when you talk about the release, if you talk about singular strength, no one has a singular strength as high as Penix Jr. The question, of course, now is his ability to read the defense. And I think he struggled very deeply against Michigan. But even in Pac-12 play, Washington only scored 15 points against Arizona State. They kind of bottled him up. Arizona kind of bottled him up a little bit by dropping 7 back. So he has struggled at times reading defenses. And when he isn't able to sort of read defenses effectively, it affects his play. It affects his accuracy. It affects his demeanor. It affects his leadership. He's almost like a volume shooter in the NBA where he needs to kind of get shots up to then kind of get into the game. He's not going to be one of these guys that's going to go 5 for 8, and really impact the game. He needs to kind of get his lather going. And so I think the question is going to be, how do you harness the arm in the right system? And I actually think, we talked about this earlier, I think the Rams is the fit. Because when you talk about the arm, right, it's a Stafford level arm but get him under McVay, get him to sort of understand defenses. That could be the heir apparent. He's not ready yet, but you have him sit with a clipboard for 2 years, learn defenses. That arm talent isn't going anywhere. I think there could be a really nice fit here with the Rams moving forward.
Man, Penix and Nakua, that would be fun to watch.
That's dirty. That's dirty. That's not fair at all.
I just remember
just got a field goal by the kicker from Stanford, able to recoup his
Yes.
losses.
Stanford's on the board in the game.
Josh Riccardi got a field goal there. So we got the national team at 10 and the American team at 7 now. So we'll see exactly how they get answered there. But yeah, Al, you go for it.
Yeah, Amir, I just want to let you know this. When we did the national championship pregame show, I was called a hater because a person thought I was going to talk bad about Michael Penix.
I thought you were. I thought because you're a USC guy.
And this is exactly what I said. I said Michael Penix
talked him up and he played like shit. So that's
I said he is really good. He is really good. But Michigan's blitz package and what they do with their front is going to tell a lot about Michael Penix and how good he's really going to be. The only place for Michael Penix to go is where they have an established offensive line. He cannot go anywhere where they're trying to rebuild because, like you guys said, comfort, he's great. When he's not comfortable, he's not good at all. You see, like the national championship game, a lot of back foot throws, a lot of rush throws, a lot of missed shots, right? Because they were getting pressure on him. How much pressure you think you're going to get on you in the NFL? Constantly, you're going to at least get touched. So I think the national championship game and then how you guys said he was up and down, so he wasn't comfortable at the Senior Bowl game, I think he's falling day by day. He has to throw an Indy. You know what I mean? And it doesn't even matter about shorts. There's pressure on you. You got 32 teams looking at you. There's a different type of pressure, but that pressure's there. He needs to throw an Indy. Washington, pro day, you'll look at it. You'll take what you need to take, maybe fundamentals and mechanics, but you have to throw that out. So if he doesn't go anywhere established, his career is going to get cut really short, really fast.
No, that's fair because sorry, Ted, didn't mean to cut you off here, but just really quickly, we saw this with David Carr, where he got drafted number 1 overall, and his offensive line at the Texans was absolutely horrendous. And it's just like you saw that sort of confidence that was lost in him. And Al, you bring up a good point because watching that national championship game, like because he was getting pressured so much, there were times where he had a clean pocket. He had Romadunze wide open. There was nobody within 10 yards of the guy. He overthrew him. And it's just like you wonder whether just like that sort of like, ghost in the backfield. I forgot who said that. Somebody in the NFL said that. I can't remember who said that. But just like you wonder whether he saw that where it's just like I'm anticipating pressure, so I need to rush this throw. And so it's like he had Romadunze open a lot of times. He had Jalen Polk open a lot of times. But because of that constant pressure earlier in the game and sporadically, I wonder if it just got into his head. He just didn't have that mentality to sort of make these clean throws, even when he was there and he had the pocket and he could hit the wide receiver open. So I liken it very much to David Carr, where he had that terrible line in Houston. So it's like, yeah, like you said, Al, if he lands in a situation where he doesn't have a good offensive line at the next level as well, that could definitely hurt him for sure.
I just think that he played himself out of the first round. I don't think that he's going to be able to get back in there. Even if he throws during the combine, it looks amazing during the combine. I don't know what quarterback just made that throw, but that was a god-awful throw. I think that Michael Penix is out. I think the 3 quarterbacks are solidly set in the first round. Jay Daniels is going to go in the first round. Drake May is going to go in the first round. Obviously, Caleb Williams is going to go in the first round. We'll have that discussion in a bit. I think that J.J. McCarthy could play himself into that conversation. Bo Nix, unfortunately, and we talked about this on the kind of preview YouTube short of like put himself back in. Unfortunately, I don't think he had enough play time today to really like up that stock. So I think Penix is going to be a second rounder. The only guy that can really play himself back in is JJ McCarthy. And I think he will end up being a first rounder. I actually have a running bet with a friend for $15 that McCarthy will go over Penix.
Can I get in on that bet?
Yeah. You think Penix is going to go over McCarthy?
Yes.
All right. Double down.
Yes.
I don't. I think that it's not to say, and this is the key thing, that is not to say that I think McCarthy should go over Penix. I like Penix a lot more than I like McCarthy, but I think that people are going to buy into McCarthy's meditating BS way more than like they should, and that he's going to do great interviews and everything. I think McCarthy's going to wind up being a late first rounder.
McCarthy, you have McCarthy going in the first round.
I think he's going to be a late first rounder.
I'll put another 15 on that. He won't go in the first round.
TBD. Well, let's talk after the combine.
All right, well, let's actually talk about the quarterback that's in the game right now. You said he just had a terrible play, terrible pass here just a moment ago here, Tad. But we got Carter Bradley, the quarterback from South Alabama. They usually like to get a local guy into the game because the game is played at South Alabama Stadium here. So, I mean, just, Tad, you've obviously got the quarterbacks. That was the position group you were scouting here. So what can you tell us about Carter Bradley?
Well, first off, and if I'm sure you already know this, but does anyone know who he's related to?
Bill Bradley.
Nope.
Sean Bradley.
Nope.
Sean Bradley. I love that one.
He's Gus Bradley's son.
Gus Bradley.
Gus
okay.
Bradley.
He is Gus Bradley's son. So, looking at his tape, what little of it I could find, which is that took me a while. He strikes me as a good backup quarterback because, his accuracy is good. He doesn't panic under pressure. The only problem with him is he's a little undersized. And on top of it all is he is the quarterback style that is slowly going extinct where he's not a mobile quarterback. He is, if you ask him to run, if you ask him to throw on the run, that's where his game weakens. And he's just a very traditional pocket passer. He kind of reminds me a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be this good. It just reminds me a lot of Phillip Rivers. Of if you ask Phillip Rivers,
you always do.
I'm just saying in terms of play style. I'm not saying in terms of how good he's going to be. But he just if you ask him, if you ask Phillip Rivers to run, you were screwed because Phillip Rivers could not run. And so he's a very good pocket passer. But I see his ceiling as a top tier backup quarterback.
Phillip Rivers, the Patrick Ewing of the NFL.
That's not bad. That's pretty good. And I'm surprised he's in this early. The quarterback play has been interesting. I thought Bo Nix was going to play a lot more. Michael Penix obviously is a bit of a bummer. The quarterback out of Tulane, Michael
Pratt.
Michael Bradley, thank you. I'm thinking of
He's not related to Spencer Pratt of the Hills, just in case people are wondering.
Not as far as I could find. He underperformed. I actually liked a lot of his tape. So the quarterback play has been less than stellar today.
I mean, this game is sort of quickly getting into worst Senior Bowl game in history. I mean, we're starting to flirt with that territory at this point. Barring an explosive fourth quarter, we're getting close. We're getting close.
It has happened in the past, Jamal. I have seen a Senior Bowl where it was like all of a sudden in the fourth quarter they just turn it on and we get a lot of scoring. So don't put it out there. But I do really want to talk about this because Al, you obviously scouted the linebackers, and we just had a big play by the North Carolina linebacker, Cedric Gray. So speak a little bit about this linebacker class, because I know before we started the live stream, you're talking about this linebacker class is a lot undersized than what we've seen in the past. So just what do you think about the talent just overall? And then, speak a little about Cedric Gray.
Yeah, so just to clear it up, I was just saying that linebackers are starting to shrink. Like before, linebackers, Ray Lewis, 250 and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Now a big linebacker in today's game is 235, which makes sense because now you have to run with running backs and receivers and things like that. So it's just the shift in the game that linebackers are getting smaller weight-wise, but height-wise they're still the same, but they're more athletic than they used to be. So Spencer Gray, I actually missed him. I didn't see a lot on him, so Don't murder me for you. Put me in front of the class. Put me in front of the class. I didn't have the homework ready.
Chad, what do you do in that situation? Just out of curiosity, when a kid doesn't have his homework, what happens there with you?
I just say okay and move on. I don't have time. I'm just like, all right.
Wow, okay.
At this point of the year, they've just broken me where I'm just like, okay, you suck, and I just move on.
I will say this about the linebacker class, though. I think the linebacker class is highly underrated than people think because of the change in linebackers, right? Small linebacker, they're more athletic now. Mason Cobb, I'll just use this as an example. Mason Cobb is free agent, maybe a Saturday linebacker, right? But Mason Cobb plays at a really high level. So just think of the linebackers that are better than him. And I think the linebacker position is turning into the running back position, but it's a position that you can't lose, if that makes sense. It's getting undervalued and people really don't care about it. But these linebackers are the ones that are at the top of the board are playing really good football. And they're really good and they're technical. It's crazy. I don't know. I think we won't see very many go on the first day because of the value of it. But
I don't think any goes on first day.
Yeah,
I
can agree. I can agree with that. I don't disagree. But I could see just a bunch of them Friday just started to come off the board. Just like, wow, what happened here? So.
And I'll back Al up here is like, a guy I've talked a lot about on the Decide Guys Fantasy Football Podcast, which, by the way, tune in for your best draft coverage over the next couple months because we are diving deep into the draft after this. A guy I've been talking up since, I want to say like October, since last fall, is Jeremiah Trotter out of Clemson. Is an amazing inside linebacker. Like, I see almost no holes in his game. And every mock draft I see, most of them don't even have him there in the first round. And even if they do, it's later in the first where it's just like, for some reason, this is a position that's being devalued on the level of running backs where, a lot of running backs are not going in the first round that deserve to go in the first round now. Now, do they deserve to go top 10? Is Jeremiah Trotter, should he be a top 10 pick? Absolutely not. But he should be in the top 10 consideration. And I was one of the only people saying last year that Jack Campbell is a good player. I was saying Jack Campbell is an amazing inside linebacker. The Lions took him at 18 or 19, and, people were saying even more than the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. By the way, shout out to the Lions because everyone was trashing on that draft or trashing on the Jack Campbell pick, and I said, no, that's a good pick, and I think he was the best rookie inside linebacker of this past season. So I think Al is absolutely right. Of this position is changing in a very weird way, and it's devaluing the position, even though the talent is still very much there.
That's fair.
Necessary, but not sufficient.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the big thing is just that the game is sort of shifted where it's like the value for the linebacker, and it's actually happening with the safety class as well. And Al, you could definitely speak on that, but just like there's a lot of times where it's like you get some high-level safeties, but they're probably not going to go in the first round either. You're prizing those defensive backs. You're prizing those wide receivers. Obviously, offensive linemen sometimes get reached for in the first round because that's where you sort of need to anchor yourself as far as protecting your quarterback. We're talking about that with David Carr earlier. It's like you need to make sure you're protecting your quarterback so they get valued a little bit higher than some of these high-level positions at the safety position as well as the linebacker position. So,
well, Omar, it's interesting. I mean, what you're saying, I'll just take 30 seconds here. It's sort of a first-order disruption and then a second-order disruption. Sure. And when you think about defensively, there's really two positions where there's a first-order disruption, where you can directly disrupt the offensive flow, the offensive production, and that is through the defensive line, your front three, your front four, and your cornerback play. Because you're either going to get to the quarterback to sort of disrupt his timing, his progressions, or you're going to have really strong cornerback play to be physical with the receivers on the other end, right? It's 2 points make a line. Can you disrupt either point to sort of prevent the line from happening? The linebackers and the safeties are more second order disruption, right? It's usually they come into play if the front four or the corners don't do their job or, have handed them off in some sort of a zone concept. So I think that's what we're seeing in the draft, that you're prioritizing first order disruption from a defensive standpoint.
Do you think this year will be the draft? And Amira and Tad, I know you guys hear me say this all the time, especially like when we did the first mock draft 2 years ago, when I was like, Thibodeau's a good example. When I was like, why go get him in the first round and you could go get him at a better value? You know what I mean? I'm not taking away his NFL ability. I'm taking away the value that you're getting him at. You're buying a Ford Escape for Jaguar price. Why not just pay Ford Escape price for him? Do you think that the GMs are starting to see it now? I'm like, wait, we could get these guys for a better value. And then if they're worth it, the second contract will be the one where we pay them. And they always say, if you make it to 3, your family's set for life. But do you think this might be the first year? Like, that's a good pick, and that's where he belongs, and that's the value he's at. We know he's good, but that's about how much he's really worth.
I think so, because you're seeing, whether it's why do I do this to myself? Latu? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Latu. Yep.
Okay, yeah, because whether it's Latu or Dallas Turner, I've not seen them mocked higher than 9. And so I don't see a edge rusher going higher than 9 right now. It's all quarterbacks, tight ends. receivers, stuff like that. It's really the value kind of, money makers where it's like, okay, these guys are going to cost us a lot in the future. Let's get them cheap for now. And so I think you're right. Kind of recognizing, okay, we don't need a running back at number 4. We don't need an edge rusher at number 5. We can find that later on, especially because, and like I said, this year's draft is so crazy deep that especially, I think maybe this is the catalyst to that thought process of it's crazy deep. We can find a solid edge rusher in round 2 to Thibodeau's level. And yes, so to answer your question, yes, I think that this is finally the year where people are catching on of we can find value later. And that's what's going to make this the next couple. I'll be fascinated. Obviously, we'll have this discussion in a little bit, but what the Bears do, this trade market with these draft picks is going to be fascinating because how much you value the position players.
So follow-up question. Is
just
Thibodeau,
FYI, Fred, before you give the follow-up question, Sam Hartman is now 6 for 18 for 53 yards. Just FYI.
Hold on. I haven't looked up in a while.
Hey, so follow-up question. Is Thibodeau a first-round pick or should he have gone later?
First-round pick, yes. Top 10, he should not have been in there.
Oh, so you still think he was a first-round pick?
Yes.
All right. I think you could have got better value out of him as a second-round pick, and you could have paid him more on the second contract.
The salary, you could have gotten better value.
Fred, I think your point is a really profound one. I think that moving forward,
don't feed the
I don't think we're gonna think of the first round in the same way anymore. I think the first round is now the top 10 because I think to your point, the big money comes in the top 10 and who are you going to get at kind of a transformational player in the top 10? It's going to be a quarterback. It's going to be someone on the edge, potentially an offensive lineman, weak side tackle
or a corner
or a corner, right? Even receivers to a certain extent are commoditized. Even tight ends to a certain extent are commoditized. It really is just those positions. And I don't know if you have enough quality at those positions to justify big money across the entire first round. I think the haves and the have-nots is going to go to kind of top 10 and then outside of the top 10 moving forward because I think these GMs are realizing you can get just about every position later for better value.
All right, real quick. Sorry to interrupt this conversation because I meant to bring this up earlier. Al, as a football coach with experience, I have got to ask you because I truly do not understand this. Why can college quarterbacks not take the snap from under center? What's so about this?
All right, so here's the advantage of going to the gun too, and it's also advantage. It's if you notice, but a lot of NFL tackles are doing it now. But for a while, NFL tackles had to put their hand in the dirt, and then Jake Long came along and didn't put his hand in the dirt, and it kind of caught on because you're already in your kick step as offensive tackle. In the gun, you're already at a 5-step drop, right? So you're just getting it now, and your read is already there at a 5-step drop compared to taking it under center and then turning your back and finding your reads. So it puts college kids at a better advantage because they starting to see the stuff right out of the snap compared to play action or dropping back and seeing it. So they run out of the gun so much that when they get to the NFL, it's like, I've only done it for quarterback sneaks. You know what I mean? Like they've never done it. And we're going to get to a point to where that was the worst throw I've ever seen in my life.
That was a really bad throw.
We're going to get to a point. This guy's a joke. We're going to get to a point to where we're going to see less under center from pro quarterbacks too, because it's just where the game is going. And we have to adapt. And the best example I could give you is basketball. Basketball changed. Centers are shooting 3-pointers now, right? They're not backing people down. And that's just
Karl Anthony Towns put up 60 points a week ago,
right?
Embiid had 70.
Yeah, Embiid had
73
on the same night. That was the same night, by the way.
Yeah. So, and they're saying, I know this is kind of off sport, but they're saying a lot of players are doing this in honor of Kobe. I read an article or something like that. It's like a Kobe vibe because it's year 24. It was
the 18th anniversary of the 81.
Yep. So they're saying Kobe's inspiring them. But anyway, the game is just changing. So under center's not done. If you don't do something right? You said, here's a good example. Spencer Rattler, 1,300 snaps. How many of those snaps, if we were to do over-under, how many of those snaps were under center?
It's funny you should mention that
6.
because that's one of the notes I made was he played a more pro style offense at South Carolina, but when he was at Oklahoma, because I looked at his tape at both schools, at Oklahoma, yeah, I think 6 is a fair over under there. South Carolina, they played a more pro style thing. That's what kind of surprised me. I was like, oh shit, okay, he can actually handle under center. All the other quarterbacks, I made that note. I'm like, I don't know about this, but it's just so confusing from a visual standpoint because we've had 2 botched under center snaps here in this game where it's just like they're literally putting it right in your hands. Just hold on to it.
Well,
They're not.
I think
it's coming harder than you expect too. The center's taught to put it there. You know what I mean? And if you never do it, it's Go ahead, Jamal.
I think to Fred's point, I mean, it is muscle memory, and I think the reason why you go shotgun and you're seeing so much shotgun is that's how the game is being taught, right? It's not even at the college level; it's at the high school level, it's at the pee-wee level because of all the pre-snap motion. How best do you learn defenses, right? It's all the pre-snap motion to figure out, are they running man? Are they running zone? What's the shell? What are the concepts? And so you're doing all this pre-snap to learn it. When you go under center, you lose your depth perception, right? To be able to learn what's going on. So the best way to learn the game as a quarterback and learn opposing defenses is through the gun. And so because you do that for 10, 12, 14 years, now in 1 week when you got to go under center, you also get a little bit jumpy because you're closer to the line, right? So you can kind of feel them leaning in. You can feel them get aggressive. So there's a tendency to want to pull out, before you even have the ball. So there's just a lot of that muscle memory and comfort.
It's a little Giants thing where he's like, he takes the Alka-Seltzer pill and he's like foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
Dear God. But all right. Well,
pull out before you have the ball. I recognize what I said. That's what she said moment
That's what
for
she
me.
said.
So,
There you go.
apparently
We got another field goal here by the Stanford kicker, Josh McCarty. So the national team is now taking
Stanford,
the lead,
baby, going to win
13-7.
MVP of this game. He's got 6 points.
Let's get back to the prospects. So, Murr, we haven't heard from you in a while, and let's bring our audience back in because we do have a question, and it is your position group. So, Murr, talk to us about Isaiah Davis.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Isaiah Davis is that I liked a lot of the tape that I saw with him. I think he's got quick feet. He's got good straight line speed. But once again, with a lot of these running backs that I've seen, I haven't seen that elite game breaker speed yet with lots of the guys that we're seeing in today's game. So it's like they're all very good at a lot of things, but they're not exactly like elite level at a lot of things as well. But consistently falls forward, so he's looking for that contact. He can sort of bounce off a lot of arm tackles as well, so he shakes a lot of defenders loose that way. So he can turn some minimal gains into some large gains as well because of that. Very patient behind the line of scrimmage. He allows the blocks to sort of create openings for him, so he's waiting for that. And then he's very good at seeing those cutback legs to sort of like allow him to obviously cut back and get into those running legs. But the one thing that I'll say for sure is, just like I said, he doesn't have that lead speed. So he's not a home run threat. He's got some good speed for a running back, obviously, but he's not going to be like a guy that's sort of like, once he gets into open field, easily he can get chased down by a safety, by another defensive back, so it can bring him down for a long gain, but not like, a 73-yard touchdown. I don't think that's in his game for sure. Also, I will say his pass protection could use some work. I just not see it consistently. His sort of hand work is just not as strong as I would like it to see, but there's a lot to like for sure, because I think he's very much, he can move in a phone booth. That's what I saw a lot of the time with the tape there, where it's like, you think you have him very close up too, but then it's like, so you make a quick move and he can sort of escape for those arm tackles and some of those tackles that you're getting from linebackers. So there's a lot that I like, but I think once again, it's just unfortunately with all these running backs that I've sort of been seeing so far as my opinion, there's a lot of like contributors to a backfield, but I haven't gotten to the top guys yet, like your Bucky Irvings from Oregon, Jonathan Brooks from Texas. I haven't gotten to those guys just yet. Of course. But for sure here, I haven't seen a guy yet in the Senior Bowl just yet that's just like, you know what? This is a guy that could be a lead guy for a backfield. I'm seeing a lot of complimentary backs so far. But Isaiah Davis, there's a lot to like. He can definitely add to a backfield for sure.
So day 2 or day 3?
Depending on how he looks at the combine, we haven't seen too much work from him in the Senior Bowl, unfortunately, but he has had a good practice week, so that's definitely going to help his stock. But yeah, definitely he'll get an invite to the combine, I'm pretty sure. I think if he could sort of showcase his skills a little bit further there, if he could showcase his pass catching ability, I think that will obviously help him a lot to be that complimentary back for sure. But I'm going to lead right now towards an early day 3 pick, unfortunately, because I think, just like I said, the running back class is not that strong. So it's going to get devalued. We're talking about linebackers and safety sort of being devalued. I think the running back position, I think, because there's lots of good depth and there's not that lead guy, that Saquon Barkley, that, guy that you want to give up everything to sort of get this guy in the first round. You're not going to see that with this guy. So I think probably in the early day 3, but if he has a successful combine and a pro day, maybe at the bottom of day 2. But yeah, I'm sort of cementing him as day 3 guy.
All right. So real quick, I just need to bring up one of my.
Well, this is the McCaffrey family.
You see it?
I love it.
You see it?
All right. So Lisa played soccer at Stanford. Dylan. Oh, I forgot about Dylan McCaffrey. But no, real quick, I just need to bring up this is one. I think it was during our Senior Bowl live stream last year where Jamal, using physics, just ripped apart how stupid this drill is. Despite it being stupid, it is still a massive factor in their, draft stock, coverage. So with Isaiah Davis, what's his 40 time going to look like? Because I haven't watched any of his tape. So am I looking at like a 4.3 guy, or am I looking more like a 4.5 guy?
Oh, dear Lord, not a 4.3 guy. You're probably looking at like 4.5, 4.6. So like I said, he's got good speed, but he's not got that game breaker speed that you want, like a Chris Johnson. CJ Duque, that is not Isaiah Davis for sure. But
right, so
you definitely got the good speed for the running back for sure. But yeah, I'm looking at something like maybe
Jamal tearing apart the 40-yard time using physics was like one of
I'm
the
not
most
a fan of it either, but people like it. It's an eye-grabbing sort of thing.
So there's other things that you look at when you do run the 40, right? So the 40s, people think of the 40 as, oh, how fast is he? But there's also a 20 and 5-yard split time that they look at, so because they measure your explosion.
Drills, I can't.
I was actually just about to bring that up, especially for like linemen, your explosion coming off that line. I think that's probably what a lot of scouts are looking at that 40. It's like, how quick is he able to get off there?
And that was my point last year. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So if he runs a 4.6, if it's 20 split is a little bit better than the 4.6, because now you're looking at the explosion, and then you're like, oh, his turnover isn't that great, but he plays downhill, then things start to look great. But 40 isn't about how fast you are. There's like other factors. I wish I would have heard Jamal's physics lessons about the 40.
It's amazing.
Lightheaded.
He literally like started off with like, let me break down the physics on this. And I instantly muted my mic because I was like, I don't want to interrupt this. I need to hear this. It was so funny, so random. But speaking of the combine, and obviously a lot of these guys, their stocks are going to be changing over the next couple months. Is who do you guys think may surprise people rising into the first round, and who may drop out of the first round that may shock some people? Let's kick it to Jamal. What do you think?
It's a good question. I think that I'm going to go back to sort of an earlier point that we were making in terms of who's going to come. I think the big X factor is JJ McCarthy in this draft. And what do you, how do you evaluate him? I think there's a lot of tools there to like in terms of arm strength, in terms of mobility, in terms of decision making. He just hasn't put really any body of work together on the field. So this is a pure potential play. This is a pure, hey, I'm trying to get into the right offensive system. I actually think the fit for JJ McCarthy is the Niners, because it's he's sort of Brock Purdy 2.0 in my eyes. And if things don't really work with Brock Purdy, you sort of go to JJ McCarthy. To me, that's sort of where I see he's got to be in a structured situation where you've got really an offensive mind that is trying to sort of bring him along slowly. But this is a pure potential play. I mean, when we talk about projection, this is a gamble. Okay, this is a total gamble, because there's nothing on tape that has sort of indicated any sort of sense of superstardom here. You're picking on elements here. So I think where JJ McCarthy goes in this draft, I think is going to say a lot about decision making by general managers moving forward in drafts to come, and how they think about potential versus on the field production versus urgency. So I think JJ McCarthy is going to be a really fascinating one for me.
I actually want to interject with a question here, because this is actually something that was brought up during Jim Harbaugh's press conference with the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, he said JJ McCarthy will be the first quarterback off the board. Now, obviously, he coached at Michigan. That was his dude. He's hyping up his own guy. But I mean, obviously, I do want to ask the question, regardless of how silly it is. But just like, is there any validity to that?
Then you draft him, Jim. Jim, you draft him then. If that's the case, then you draft him, Jim.
Who's got?
Is he going to replace Justin Herbert? Is that what he's going to do?
Throw at Harbaugh.
No, I mean, I'm talking about whether JJ McCarthy goes in the 4th round or whether he goes in the 1st round. But there is no, and I think honestly, none of that would surprise me. Whether he goes in the 1st or he goes in the 4th, I think it's just going to be really, it's going to be really indicative of how general managers are thinking.
It's kind of the same thing with Will Levis. Like, I was a little shocked last year when Levis started to slip, and I'm like, is Levis going to go here? Is he going to go here? And then like he slipped to the 2nd round, and I was like, yeah, it's still not that surprising though. Like it surprised me a little bit because I thought somebody would pull the trigger on it, but at the same time, I wasn't like floored that Levis slipped into the later rounds. Because he had a lot to work on, and it's McCarthy's the exact same way. It's like, yes, I see the promise there, but he has a lot to work on. And I think that he was more of a beneficiary of a very good surrounding talent more than like he did not elevate that team. He just didn't sink it. So It's just like, he's fine.
The only advantage he has is
I'm saying that.
Here's the advantage he does have, Tad. Play the over-under game with him of how many snaps he's taken under center. He's taken a lot of snaps under center because he's been playing in like a true pro offense. Well,
gonna go 1,100.
I don't know. I'm just
shit, man.
Just throwing shit out there.
You don't know the over.
I don't know. I'll just throw it out there.
Fred makes his own rules, Tad. That's why Fred is special. Okay?
I think that's a big reason why his stock is, I won't say so high, but why his stock is where it is because exactly he does play in a pro style offense and you have less of a transition worry. And I think if he played in a, we were just talking about in a shotgun heavy offense, I think that would hurt his stock. And there's no way he goes in the 1st round. I think the pro style is probably the only thing really keeping him in this 1st round conversation.
I don't know why you would take him in the 1st round because you don't know what he is.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you risking on a 1st rounder? Like,
that's why, Fred, it could work out. It seems like right up the Niners alley, right, with Trey Lance. So, they tend to sort of give up half the team for guys they're not sure of. So
it gets them to a Super Bowl.
Well, okay.
They probably would have won 2 Super Bowls if they didn't make that mistake by now.
So we're talking about guys that we're not sure of. So there's actually a guy I want to talk about that they were showing on the broadcast more recently here. Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia. So based on a lot of articles that I've been reading, a lot of reports that I've sort of been hearing about is that he's a little bit of a polarizing prospect where it's like, we're talking about the running backs and some of these guys not having game breaker speed. Ladd McConkey has that game-breaking speed. Like, that's what he was at the University of Georgia for their offense. But he also hasn't been on the field as consistently as you would like him to be. So, I mean, I kind of want to throw this out here. I mean, just what do you guys feel about with Ladd McConkey? Like, I mean, do you think too many people are going to – we were sort of talking about this, Jamal, with Laiatu Latu, where he sort of had to, like, reinforce the fact that it's like he was able to get over those injuries. And now scouts, I think, probably will be a little bit more assured that he can stay healthy. But with McConkey, it's like, fortunately, even throughout his college career, he's sort of been handled with that sort of like injury bug, quote unquote, right? So, but when he's healthy, he's probably one of the more game-breaking wide receivers in this draft class. So, I mean, Jamal, I'll just pass it to you here. What do you think about his skill set? And just like, how do you think scouts will value him as far as like, do they fall more the injury aspect or they fall more the game-breaking aspect?
Yeah, Amar, it's a great question.
And here he is
you've been nailing them
because
today.
he brings all these facets to the game. So
yeah,
I noticed that as you were talking about. I'm like, well, speaking of which,
the best version of McConkey is, frankly, when I watch him, is Cooper Kupp 2.0. He's the when you talk about route variation, route tree. He's pretty seamless. He's probably the best route runner in this draft. I mean, when you talk about just how clean his feet are. It's sort of Cooper Kupp level route tree in that sense. So I think that's something that is going to be deeply attractive to NFL GMs. The fact that he came from, the winningest program here the last 3 or 4 years in Georgia. He understands high stakes, big pressure games. But again, the question is going to be, to your point, the injury and the durability. But I think, when you sort of say, hey, look, you go break down what the injuries were. A couple of fluke plays, in terms of some hits that he took. So I think that in this type of situation, when you're talking draft, you're always kind of having the reward outweigh the risk, especially when the reward could be so high. So I think McConkey is going to be looked at very, very positively. And I think he's going to go higher than people realize because of just the sophistication of his feet and his route running ability.
Well, and the thing that makes his feet so durable. Sorry, I don't know if you're picking up those sirens. My new apartment's right off a very busy street.
And the ghetto
is. I'm just happy the cat hasn't made an appearance since the first quarter. Is that he uses
the cat realizes this is a terrible game, so
he's better off sleeping through this one.
No, that's exactly what he's doing. He is dead asleep. But he does this interesting thing with how he shifts direction, where a lot of receivers will, shift direction using their feet and their legs. And yes, obviously he does that, but what he really uses is his center of gravity. You'll see like when he kind of changes routes, he kind of bends down to kind of concentrate everything. And that's what makes him so open. And like Jamal said, that's what makes Cooper Kupp so good. Cooper Kupp's not the fastest receiver in the NFL. Far from it. It's his ability to understand how to control his body. And he has a very good ability to do the same. So yes, I really liked what I saw. The injury thing, like he would be in the first round conversation if it wasn't for the injury concerns. And I think, going way back when we were talking about Michael Penix, that's another huge hang up on him, is just the injury concern is a very real one. So I like him a lot. I'm glad I won't say he's having a great game, but he's having a pretty decent performance. So I think that he's solidified himself as I wouldn't be shocked if he was a late second rounder at this point.
All right, so kind of like Jamal has definitely brought up here, the game has not been the best. So I do want to ask a fun question here.
Wait. I want to give you mine, Amir.
Go for it.
Well, I already said it. I think Brandon Rice is going to sneak into the first round.
He's not.
Ooh.
I think
it's right in the first round. Interesting. Okay.
Extra $15.
You said what? Extra 15. Extra 15.
15.
So for those of us keeping score at home, this is now 45. Is that correct?
$45. Yep.
Okay.
I was like it.
So, and I'll tell you why. And we talked about it earlier. He had a great week at the Senior Bowl, right? Like he had a great week. I'm interested to see what he does in Indianapolis, but he just brings other facets. He's not just a receiver. He'll block for you in the run game. You can move him down and put him in the slot. He's one of this year, and we never really talked about this, Jamal. This year, one of his best improvements was catching that now ball and getting upfield and scoring, and that extra burst. Like he's becoming a big game playmaker. Does he have that ability now? No, but I think somebody between 25 and 32 would be like, I think this is our guy, and we're going to go with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he snuck into the first round.
Let me ask you a question, Fred. Is there any Bronny James effect here with Brendan Rice? Does the fact that his last name has anything to do with this?
No. He is legit his own man, and he's playing good football right now in his life.
Well, we got to speak to this, by the way, Amir. I have yet to watch the game, but I saw him in your notes. Is Frank Gore's son. I mean, speaking of Bronny James effect, Frank Gore's son was MVP of the Shrine Bowl. So, I mean, is there?
He's good. He's pretty good.
Dad didn't believe me when I told him he was good.
I did not.
He's good.
I thought it was Bronny James effect, where it was like, hey, it's Frank Gore's kid. But
no, I remember.
I think one game he ran for like 400 yards or something like that.
He did. I think it was close to that. But yeah, I remember I was reading an article about Frank Gore on ESPN, and he was talking about his son specifically. He was like, he brings a lot of the characteristics that I brought to the game. If anything, he's a little bit faster than I was. He was like, there's a few things he needs to clean up, like his pass protection. His hands are not as good as mine was, but that came with a little bit of time here. But just, yeah, there's a lot to like with Frank Gore Jr. And I think, as of right now, with him sort of finishing the East-West Shrine game, finishing as offensive MVP there, I think that's going to raise his stock for sure and put him a little bit further on the map for a lot of these scouts for sure. But he brings that patience that you saw with Frank Gore. He brings that sort of just that, like, hard to tackle ability that Frank Gore had. Like, I mean, it was just sensational watching Frank Gore in the NFL. Obviously, I loved him as a Niner, but I mean, he played for the Colts, he played for the Dolphins. Like, I mean, he had longevity and he was still doing it late in his career, and so we'll see whether his son can do that same thing. But we've had a lot of successful sons. Like, I mean, we had Joey Porter Jr. He turned out to be fantastic with the Steelers. You got Patrick Surtain II with the Denver Broncos. He's an all-pro defensive back. You got Asante Samuel Jr. with the Los Angeles Chargers. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are filling in their dad's shoes. And yeah, based on everything that Al's saying, maybe Brendan Rice is going to be that same guy following in his dad's footsteps. A lot bigger shoes for sure compared to some of those other guys, but I think he can do it.
If you guys want my hot take, hold on, Al. If you guys want my hot take, I think Pat Surtain Jr. is going to be a Bear. I think the Broncos are going to be the dark horse team to trade up to number 1 to take Caleb.
Well, I think we got to talk about that. You know, we've gone halfway,
halfway into the fourth.
To Amar's point, you know, I've seen senior PGA Tour events that are more exciting than this game with 7.5 minutes to go. Let's get into the number one pick situation.
All right. So let's do a round. Let's start it off real quick. Just no analysis, just real quick. Trade or keep. If you're the Bears, just trade or keep. I don't want to hear a single word other than trade or keep out of any of you. Amir, trade or keep if you're the Bears.
Keep.
Trade.
Ooh.
Trade.
Okay, so
all right, so we're 2v2. 2v2. Amir, you go first. Why are you keeping it, and do you take Caleb Williams?
So I'm keeping it, but I'm not taking Caleb Williams. I think in this case, I still liked what I saw with Justin Fields. I think just unfortunately the injuries got the best of him this past season, but we saw what he could do as far as like just being a dynamic playmaker. You finally gave him a legit receiver in DJ Moore. He was able to showcase his skills as well. So, I mean, I just think there's a lot that you can still build upon with Justin Fields. You give him a little bit better of an offensive line. Maybe you get that running game going a little bit better. That defense is starting to look a lot stronger too. So I think it's still a little bit of a work in progress, that team overall, and I don't think that all falls on Justin Fields' shoulders. Now, I think they're obviously leading in that direction, that they'll probably trade him and they'll probably take Caleb Williams because of just how much hype is surrounding Caleb Williams being the number 1 overall prospect, possibly. But for me, I think there's just a lot that I still like with Justin Fields that he can still bring to that offense. And like I said, still a little work in progress. So I think they still need a little bit more work, but I'd rather keep on Justin Fields and upgrade, maybe getting Marvin Harrison Jr., pair him up with DJ Moore. That offense just becomes that much more dynamic.
All right, so you say keep the first overall pick, but take Marvin Harrison Jr. with it.
Correct. That's what I say.
Okay, gotcha. Al?
I'd say keep it. And I'm with Amir. Don't throw out your experiment because I don't think it's completely dead yet. I think you have some route to go. I just think you need a little bit more help, right? So if you're saying trade the pick, you're going to trade it to somebody, and then they're going to kill Caleb's career, right? So the best thing to do is keep it, help what you have now, and try to fix that because you still have 2 more years left to fix it because it's only Justin Fields' second year. Got 2 more years left on his rookie contract. Try to fix that and try to get some success there. So Marvin Harrison Jr., that's actually a good one. If you could get some protection up front, that's a good one, a defensive lineman. But yeah, I'll keep that pick and try to put the best talent around Justin Fields and try to make that work.
All right, Jamal,
I would trade it.
Team, so
yeah, I would trade it because similar to sort of the thinking with Amar and Fred, that Fields is 24, Caleb's 22. You haven't had any stability around Fields, and I think there's still a lot to like in terms of his ability to be mobile as well as his ability to throw the ball. He's played 3 years, but there's just been so much instability there. I think this problem goes beyond just Justin Fields. I have questions about Caleb's leadership. I have questions about Caleb's ability to galvanize a locker room. Fred,
here we go.
And me have got him started. I mean, Fred, sort of controversially or not, and he and I are kind of on the same page, that Caleb Williams was a cancer to USC this year. And so how does that, impact, your ability? I think leadership matters, particularly at that quarterback position. And then 3, even if you love Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 1, trade it with the Commanders at 2. And if the Commanders are looking for a quarterback, because even if you like Marvin Harrison, take Harrison Jr. at 2 and you get another pick, right? So there's no incentive at all to sort of keep it at 1 and not get Caleb because there's such a market for Caleb. So, and then beyond, if you don't like Marvin Harrison Jr., you can get even a bigger boatload back if you're going below 2 for that particular pick. So those are the 3 reasons I have for the trade.
No, I 100% agree with everything you guys all said. I think we're all in the same boat of just stick with Justin Fields, right? And I think one thing that's being massively overlooked with this entire situation is one of my best friends is a Bears fan, and he's like, he's unsure of whether or not to stick with Fields. If Fields works out, it's great because you're kind of seeing this with the Dolphins right now is, yes, you will have to pay Fields a lot because I hear this rookie contract. Okay, take Caleb Williams, run with a rookie contract. Well, okay, best case scenario, Caleb Williams blows up. He is the next best thing. Well, great. Then you have to pay him $500 million and your team is shit for the next. And we saw this with the Chiefs. And I know the Chiefs just are in the Super Bowl, but like no one was expecting them to do it because their offense, the talent surrounding Patrick Mahomes, because they're paying him so much, is minimal. And so I think that with Fields, you almost get a discount of like $150 million. And that's kind of what the Dolphins are getting as well, is because Tua is good, but you don't have to pay him Joe Burrow money. You don't have to pay him Patrick Mahomes money. So you kind of get a bit of a long-term discount where you know what you got, but you're not breaking the bank for it. And so, it's one of those things like I think the rookie contract thing only really works for about 3 years. So, no, and that's exactly it. Jamal, what you mentioned was if someone's trading up with you at number one, they're not doing it for Marvin Harrison Jr. They're doing it for Caleb Williams. They're doing it for Jaden Daniels. They're doing it for a quarterback. So as long as you don't trade past, let's say 5, I would try my best to stay ahead of the Chargers. I'd be a little scared of the Chargers or the Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr. If you can stay ahead of both of them, then yeah, you're good. And I really do believe the Commanders, the Broncos, the Patriots, they've probably already gotten calls about this. I'd be shocked if the Bears were up at number 1 come April.
And I'll just throw a quick angle here, Amar, before passing it back to you, of course, we've got an article on LA Football Network on this from an LA standpoint. There is a world where Caleb Williams and Chip Kelly join forces with the Commanders, where Chip Kelly is the offensive coordinator and Caleb Williams is the quarterback as part of Caleb Williams' return back home. Everyone forgets he's in the DMV area. There was a lot that was made in the fall about the 5 teams that he had were his preferred destinations. Chicago was not on that list, but guess what? The Washington Commanders were, because it was an opportunity to return home. So there's some very delicious possibilities here from an LA perspective about kind of an odd couple joining forces with the Commanders.
Where are the Commanders in the draft? The Commanders are 2?
Yep. Commanders are picking at number 2 for sure.
Hey, Caleb doesn't need to go to the Commanders. Caleb doesn't need to get drafted until...
He's a hometown boy, though. From all reports, he wants to go to the Commanders.
I understand that, but Caleb needs to figure out what's best for him. Caleb needs to get drafted 20 and below.
Is Bieniemy still there? What's going to happen to Bieniemy?
Hasn't been confirmed yet because they did hire their new head coach, Dan Quinn. He has not confirmed as far as the staff, as far as whether they're going to keep Eric Bieniemy, keep some of those guys. But as of right now, we're still in limbo. But guys, I definitely want to get to a question in the comments here. We definitely want to give a shout out to all the people participating in the comment section, asking us great questions. So we have a Rams-based question. We got to ask this here. And Tad, this falls into your plate because he's talking about offensive linemen here. So, I mean, we haven't talked about it here, but just, hey, y'all, this is from Silly Fungi. I think I'm saying that right. But hey, y'all, go Rams. Do you think the Rams move Steve Avila, the offensive lineman from TCU? That's why Dad's got the horns up there. Do you think they move Avila to center and they draft an offensive lineman to replace him? So as of right now, the Rams are currently picking at number 19. So that is actually a pretty good range to find an offensive lineman. Obviously, we're talking about like some of these quarterbacks going in the top 10. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. going in the top 10. So you got a lot of guys that are going to push some of these guys top 10. So it's like you may not be able to get one of those premier offensive tackles like Olu Fashanu from Penn State or Joe Alt, obviously, but maybe some of those guards come into play here, Tad. I don't know, but just like, what do you think about this situation? And just like, what do you think is the value for the offensive lineman at that position around, the middle of the round, 15 to 20, and they're picking at 19, like I said, as of right now.
So, no, I don't think there's any center worth taking in the first round. And kind of what we're talking about, the running backs and the linebackers here is that value. You can find the good value for much cheaper in the second or third round. We saw this with, like I said, I rewatched a lot of our live streams, in preparation for today. And both of our reactions when the Bills took Osiris Torrance. Last year, we were just like, damn it. Because it was just like, it was the last pick of the second round. We're like, he's so good. How did he slip to this point? And that's just the value of the position at this point. Is Avila, not however the hell you said it. Is Avila a suit for center? Absolutely not. I watched him in college. I love the fact that, by the way, Steve Avila is one of the only rookies not to allow a sack all season. So I'm very happy he succeeded with the Rams. It was awesome to watch. No, he's not a center. That would be a terrible idea. Keep him at guard. He is well suited there because there are a lot of good centers in this year's draft. And this is actually, I'm really excited you asked this question because I love this guy. This is my favorite part of Senior Bowl is when you watch the tape and you're just like, oh my God, I've discovered my this amazing player. And so I actually wrote out the pronunciation. So let me try this. The center of Florida, who I have been watching today, he's had a good day today.
Oh, sorry, Ted.
Oh, no.
Get you off here because we had an interception on that play, and we were just waiting to see because he was running out of gas towards the end here to see whether he was going to make shoot.
Score.
They're saying he was short by just a bit, but the interception was made by Chow Smith-Wade out of Washington State, the defensive back. I mean, it was just not the best throw by Joe.
And another guy that Tad recognized, Milton, with a horrible throw. Like clockwork. That was, in a land of terrible throws, that might have been the worst one today. So
Smith-Wade made the interception. He dove for it. He did get tackled, so then he made the long run. He was running all over the place. Unfortunately, fell just short of the end zone, so it wasn't a pick six.
Did that singular play get him the MVP?
But a defensive MVP, I think that's
the kicker from Stanford is the MVP right now. He has the most.
I think it's Bailey.
It's Bailey, man.
Pretty strong.
I mean, this was a 6-0 game after the first quarter, so it's either the Stanford kicker or Bailey.
Al, I definitely want to kick it to you here because you got the defensive backs here. But just, do you have any notes on Chow Smith-Wade? I think I'm saying that name right, but the defensive back out of Washington State.
Yeah, so I actually seen him play because he played in the conference and.
That's
he
true.
was in the conference for a little bit. And he had a couple. I used to have access to film, but then we got cut off. Neither here nor there. So that's heartbreaking, though. But no, he's a guy, and like you see right there, he's a real rangy guy. He's one of those long, lanky defensive back that play corner that has a lot of range. The question I have for him is he a man guy or is he a zone guy? He does open the gate at times at corner and he gets beat, but he recovers. So he makes plays like he just made right now. He's a recover guy. So the question is, how do you put him in the best situation possible for him to succeed? I don't want him to always recover. So I wonder if he could play zone, but I didn't see a lot of zone out of him because Wazoo ran a lot of a little bit similar to match, but it was mostly man. So real interesting to see how he picks up and how they evaluate him at the next level.
Okay. So Tad, really quick, I want to give you the closing point for the question that you're sort of getting to before we
That is disappointment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is disappointment right here. This is the definition of disappointment.
Dad, just please give us your Super Bowl pick before we sign off, just so we can pick the opposite.
At this point, I'm really taking the Colts to win the Super Bowl, just so I don't.
Dad, I definitely want to give you a chance to sort of give the final point for the question that we got in the comments here by Silly Funky about just what do you think the Rams do? Do you think they move Avila to center? It seems like you're against that move.
Man, come on.
Just what do you think they could do at 19? Just any thoughts there?
At 19, I think they'll go. I don't think they'll go quarterback. I think that's a very popular hot take of they'll take Stafford's successor. I don't see any reason for them to do that. We saw it. I mean, he was doing so well.
He's got some thoughts on the Rams. That's why he came in.
Well, especially here's Rams. Yes. But no, I think I actually had the Rams upsetting the Lions in the first round this year because they can still compete.
A lot of people did.
With Stafford. So I don't see the point of wasting the first round pick they've had in 5 years of of taking Stafford's successor. No, I see them taking an immediate contributor, probably a cornerback. Because that cornerback class is pretty good, especially on the later half of the first round. So I see that, maybe linebacker, defensive lineman. But in terms of, how do they address the offensive line? No, Avila. I don't know, Avila or whatever the hell you're saying. Avila is not going to go to center. He's not suited for center. And
he's not even trying anymore. I'm sorry.
if you want a good center, I think that you can get this guy in the second or third round. That is Kingsley. I'm going to try this. Kingsley Egwukan.
Okay.
Egwukan. He is the center out of Florida. He is a great anchor. He does, this is the one player all day I can say he's actually been performing well despite my, stamp of approval. And so, actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, this might be him in center right now.
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
in Florida there. Yeah.
Oh, and the play got blown up. Yeah,
65.
wonderful.
That was not his fault.
Oh god.
That was an outside.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, but the play seemed to get blown up from up the middle. Okay.
They showed a replay. In what way is that his fault?
Ted, I will say this though: the Rams' two biggest needs to become a Super Bowl contender is they need a receiver to take the top off, and they need another offensive lineman.
And I'm telling you, like the Egwukan is like if you need a center, he is the absolute best center in this year's draft. And this is why you don't listen to like sites like Draft Buzz and stuff like that, because I looked at their site and they have him ranked as the 10th best center. I don't know what the hell they're looking at. This guy is the definition of an anchor. So he is definitely my favorite center prospect going in this year's draft. Avila, he's good. Don't mess with a good thing. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. And he's a good guard for the Rams. Keep him at guard. Don't force him in at center. So, no, I like Avila there. I like him much more than I like a lot of these prospects because they're making me look like a goddamn idiot.
No, Chad, the one thing I'll add about the Rams is I think if you have a generational offensive lineman that you really feel like can be an 8 to 10 year solution, then I think you go for it. Otherwise, I think the Rams need to fortify the defensive line. I think there's going to be a world here where Aaron Donald is on the last year of his contract. I think they've shown some flashes in the secondary. I actually think the Rams are okay on offense with with Puka and Cooper Kupp and even Tutu Atwell. Robinson has emerged this year. I think if they can get some really nice serviceable depth at the offensive line position later in the draft. So I think they're okay offensively. I think if you've got a generational prospect that you feel like is going to be 10 years, you go O-line. Otherwise, I think you go D-line.
And it's good news because O-line and receiver are probably, especially offensive tackle, two of the deepest classes I've seen in a while here is where like there's a good receiver that, again, Murr and I kind of talked about this a couple episodes ago of guys who should have stayed, guys who should, who made a mistake declaring early. A lot of them did at the receiver position because a lot of them would have been like, you would have been easily first round next year had you stayed, because especially next year's receiver class as it stands now, not that good. So that's really good. And another guy I just briefly want to mention, I won't talk about him too much, but a guy who I was shocked at how good he was. And this just shows how deep this draft is, because he would be a lock for a top 10 in any other year's draft, is the Oregon State tackle Talisi Fuaga. I think Fuaga. That dude's awesome, and the Rams have a very real chance of landing him at 19, which is crazy because any other year draft where O'Shanu's not in the draft, Joe Alt's not in the draft, that dude would be a top 10 pick, and the Rams have a very real chance of getting him.
Yep. No, I think that's a great point. And I think the Stanford kicker may have locked up offensive MVP of this game.
Because unfortunately Sam Hartman couldn't get it done for the offense there, so they end up getting stalled right there at the
I'm always going to remember this game as long as I live as the incredible duel between Sam Hartman and Joe Milton. It was a generational battle.
To be fair, though, Joe Milton has not played badly except for that throw. That throw was very bad. I will not defend that. But
Josh Carty got himself another field goal, so he has 3 on the day now. The national team has taken the lead 16.
Most points. He's the only one who scored since the first quarter.
True.
So,
but guys, I want to bring up this question because I'm very excited.
Real quick, Amir. Real quick.
Yeah.
If I'm Sam Snead, I'm just saying, if I'm Sam Snead, and I like
Snead less.
If I'm Sam
Snead was a great golfer.
You guys should look up what Les Snead's real name is. His name is Samuel Leslie Snead.
Really?
Fred just said weight room. Right. Big weight room, Tad. That's what he said.
So if I'm Sam Snead, what's stopping me from doing what I normally do to win Super Bowls and trade up to get that number 1 pick?
Oh, God damn it, dude. Don't do this.
I'm just saying.
What? Okay. Trade up to number 1 for who?
Whoever you want, you have the whole board.
Nice.
Or you trade down, right, Fred? I mean, that's kind of more what the Rams do is get out of the first
That's
round,
true.
get more
That's
picks
more-
later.
That's more like
That feels more like the Sneedian philosophy.
because yeah, he likes veteran play. And I kind of do this when I play Madden, right? Of like, give me the veteran, like the guy whose rating I know. Like, I'd rather go for the 80.
Don't compare real life to a video game, please.
Well, I will, because that is exactly what the Rams are doing.
Trench warfare coming out in April.
I know this corner is rated 88 overall rather than the corner I could draft and end up being a 75 overall. Like, that's what the Rams' whole philosophy has been the last decade of give me what I know rather than the unknown. And I think I'm frankly, I'm not going to lie. I'm shocked the Rams still have their first round pick. I thought they would have gotten rid of it by now.
Half
think
them
there's
picks,
nothing out
right?
there.
That's the slogan.
So that's actually a good transition point. We're talking about video games here. That's a topic I want to bring up here. So we're finally getting an NCAA football game this year. I am so excited for it. Release date is July 12th. I am so stoked for it. But here's the question I want to ask you guys. We don't know it yet, but who do you think should be the cover athlete for this year's iteration of the game? So I want to go around the horn here in case you want to know. Some past athletes include the most recent version. 2014, we had Denard Robinson, the quarterback for the University of Michigan. In 2011, we had the quarterback for the University of Florida, Tim Tebow. USC, they had a cover athlete. In 2007, Reggie Bush was the cover there. And of course, who can forget 2008, we were graced with the cover of Jared Zabransky from Boise State, the quarterback. I had to close it with that one. So, guys, just based on the past season, just who do you think has the best shot to be the cover athlete? I'll go around the horn here. Al, let's start with you.
It's current players. So who's coming?
So who played
back?
in the past season? Yeah.
It has to be the past season.
Usually that's the case. It's usually
Not
the guy
anymore
who's a
because
rookie
they could get paid now.
Yeah.
So it'll be a player that's coming back in college.
It could be,
Or
yeah,
I mean, because it
yeah.
hasn't been a game since 2014. I mean, do you open it up a little bit?
Yeah, that's true. Do you like put a collective? But I'm trying to think.
Could be.
I'm trying to
They
think
go
of
in
like,
any direction here. So yeah, just who do you think will be the cover athlete?
I'm trying to think of who's coming back that because I mean, I guess Caleb will be the number one choice for me. But if I would do a second, like who's coming back that's like, man, that dude's good. I can't even really think of nobody right now. I'll go Caleb.
Caleb Williams. Okay. Tad, who do you think will be the cover athlete?
How about this?
Hypnotoad.
I'm breaking the rules. Generation. Lamar Jackson for this decade.
Man, you took mine. Damn it.
And they have done that in the past. I think it was the 2013 version. They had Barry Sanders and Robert Gifford III on it based on the games that they were introducing new elements or whatever. So they have gone historical in the past too. So it's not out the realm of possibility.
Historical across decades, right? So it's Lamar Jackson, Reggie Bush for the 2000s. Ryan Bosworth, throw in a defensive player there or Charles Woodson, either one of those for the 90s, 80s.
Yeah, Bos was an 80s guy though. Yeah. So it's got to be Woodson for the 90s.
All right, perfect. So Woodson for the 90s, Bos for the 80s. And then you just kind of do that of 5 players across decades of
nice.
We're back. That'd be sweet because apparently they have said historical teams is going to be a feature of the game.
That would make sense. Jamal, what do you think? I know.
I was taking the approach of who was sort of iconic in the last 10 years in college since the game came up, and just the combination of Heisman Trophy success and NFL MVP. Lamar Jackson's the only one to win both of those awards, so that's why I had Lamar. But I won't rain on Tad's parade there. I'll come up with something else. I think what would be really fun is to set up the next hopeful rivalry in the NFL. I do a split cover with Mahomes and Caleb.
Interesting. And yeah, that's actually been a lot of the talk because
who's yours? I'm
about to give it. Hang on.
He just
but that's sort of been the talk. That's sort of the talk because we haven't had a game since the 2014 version. So a lot of people are like, maybe they're going to honor the past guys that probably should have been the cover. So I'm actually going to throw into the hat here because they've also had years where they've had multiple covers for each different console. So I think they may go with that route. And I think one of the covers, we may see Joe Burrow on the cover. And just, I also like Lamar Jackson choice. I think Devontae Smith, the former Heisman winner, he may get a chance as well. So I think they go more of like that different console will get a different cover because there's so many guys that just went unlooked because we didn't have a game for so long. But I 100% think if they go that route, Joe Burrow will be on one of those covers for sure. But so excited for the game this year.
I have a question. You guys can help me out with this dilemma. So I got a PlayStation Network gift card for Christmas.
Nice.
Right? But MLB The Show comes out before NCAA.
That is true. It comes out in March usually.
Yeah. So should I pay full price for MLB The Show and use the gift card on NCAA, or should I do it the other way around?
So Amur has a great, I'm going to steal his advice. And, I almost did the same thing. And I'm actually waiting for, because I'm still playing 2K23.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I just want 2K24 already. But I'm waiting because Amur was the one that told me this. If you wait until the All-Star break, usually they put the game on sale. So
at least 50%.
It's a massive, massive discount. So I'm waiting until the NBA All-Star break, and then I'm getting 2K24. So,
I can't wait that long.
Well, that's a you problem, buddy.
For me, I put it towards NCAA because they may have like some fancier deluxe edition and stuff like that. So you can sort of get a discount off of that because you're using a PS gift card that way. So that's probably my advice there. But guys, the Senior Bowl has come to its conclusion, but I do want to close with one final question. Mercifully. We're waiting to see exactly.
Spencer Rattler's the MVP. So I'm sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So we are waiting to see who the MVP is, and clearly it looks like it's Spencer Rattler. The MVP for some reason.
The guy, I mean, this is just so perfect. The guy who Tad said is terrible is the MVP, and the guy who the two guys that Tad said are phenomenal.
Okay, whoa, time out. I did not say phenomenal. Hold on.
Because he went 4 for 4.
Man.
I said Hartman looked good, and then I very quickly walked that one back. Milton, I'll back up. At no point did I say any of these teams, any of these quarterbacks were phenomenal.
So he's the MVP going
Spencer Rattler with 4 checkdowns on the opening drive against MVP.
Over Amani Bailey, that's bullshit.
That's a little shocking. That's a little bit of an upset pick.
He did have the one nice throw, though, for the touchdown.
Only scoring that we got.
3 checkdowns and 1 nice throw.
This is just like the Super Bowl MVP, where whoever is the winning quarterback always gets
that's the throw they're going to show. That's the only highlight of the game, by the way.
You actually bring up a really good point because I want to close out our live stream with that question. Obviously, the Super Bowl is happening next weekend, so I don't want to go super deep into it for sure. But guys, I really want to get your quick thoughts as far as how you feel about the matchup. Who do you think is going to win? And just your overall, just what's going to be the difference in that game for either of those teams to win. So once again, we'll go around the horn. Y'all, I'll go the reverse order. I'll start with you, Jamal.
Excited for this game. Obviously, the rematch from 5 years ago. And look, on paper, and when you just sort of look at roster construction, the 49ers are significantly the better team here. When you sort of go down the position groups, when you go down key players and depth. So the Niners are the better team. But man, oh man, it just doesn't seem right to bet against Patrick Mahomes. It feels like it's his era. It's his sport. Hard to count him out. I think in the end, it'll be 24-20 Kansas City. Mahomes gets number 3.
Wow. Okay. Tad, what are your thoughts?
I think this is a fascinating matchup for the sole reason that people forget San Francisco would have won their previous matchup had Jimmy Garoppolo hit that late fourth quarter throw that he overthrew by like 5 yards. And so I think that San Francisco matches up with them really well for this reason is who's the one team that's beaten Kansas City in the Super Bowl? It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How do they do it? They put pressure on the quarterback. And San Francisco between, investing in Javon Hargrave, trading for Chase Young. And yes, I know Chase Young has been embroiled in a little bit of controversy recently, but I think they'll end up playing him. They recognize that and be like, we need to pressure Patrick Mahomes. So I think that, yes, I think it will be a close game. However, I think that San Francisco, should they be able to perform defensively, they're the better team, and Kansas City's hot streak will end here. So I'm actually taking San Francisco 27, Kansas City 17. San Fran gets their first Super Bowl in what, like 30 years?
30 years.
Yeah.
What's the spread? So you're saying that
I think it's San Francisco 2.5 is the last I saw.
Yeah,
So you're
that's
saying-
the last I saw too.
So you're saying that the Niners are going to cover and they're going to win. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was writing this all down.
Everyone take the Chiefs. Okay.
Take the Chiefs on both the money line and the spread.
Oh gosh, that's not good news for me if Tad's picking the Niners.
It looks good once.
But Al, what are your thoughts on the game?
So Andy Reid is a dangerous coach when you give him 2 weeks. And he's shown that multiple times that Andy Reid is given 2 weeks. The Niners have a kryptonite that has been hunting them the whole playoff run, right? And they cannot stop the run at all.
That is true.
Isaiah Pacheco is going to have a day in the Super Bowl.
Great call.
Isaiah Pacheco will be the NFL MVP. The Niners will win.
Super Bowl
30.
MVP.
Super Bowl MVP.
Sorry.
He's not that good. He's not that good.
I apologize.
I love that pick, though. Man, I love
Isaiah
that pick.
Pacheco will be the Super Bowl MVP. He'll be going to Disney World. The Niners will win by 10, 31-21. Not the Niners. The Chiefs will win by 10, 31-41.
Pacheco's the MVP, but on the losing
No.
team. That's an interesting call.
The Chiefs.
What was that, Will Chamberlain?
There's no way Taylor Swift isn't on that podium with the confetti. Okay,
Yeah.
so
The Chiefs will win. The Chiefs will win 31-21. Isaiah Pacheco will run for 100 plus easy.
I like it.
Love the pick by Fred. Man, oh man, he's outdone himself today.
I'll close this out here. I'm definitely obviously rooting for 49ers, but Jamal,
Don't be a homer.
Everybody sort of laid it out here. It's hard to count out the Chiefs as long as just, Mahomes is under center. Andy Reid has coached that team. They just do such a good job in combination between the two of them. Al, you sort of laid it out perfectly. Just the Niners have had a hard time stopping the run. If they establish Isaiah Pacheco in the running game, it's going to be really difficult for the Niners to stop that. But I'd like to think that with the two back-to-back comeback wins the Niners have had, they sort of eliminated that bugaboo that has been on them for a long time. So hopefully that will sort of, alleviate some of the pressure of something that happened to them in a Super Bowl against the Chiefs. So it's like, hopefully that will be something to be optimistic for as a Niner fan. That's what I'm optimistic for. Al, I know you said not to play the homer card, but unfortunately, I'm staying optimistic. I'm going to play the homer card. I'm also going to say that the MVP will be Christian McCaffrey. I think he has a sensational game in this game. It's not going to go to Brock Purdy, unfortunately, even though Brock Purdy will have a good game. But I think also the much admired Jake Moody will kick a game-winning field goal towards the end of the game, and he will be able to lift them to a victory here. I'm going to say 27-24, the Niners pull off the victory here.
Is this if the Chiefs win, is this the walk-off for Andy Reid?
No.
I don't think so. At the level that he's on, I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps going.
Come back for the three-peat, huh?
Exactly.
I think he tries to get 7.
I was about to say, is Andy Reid poised to overtake Bill Belichick?
He could be. He could be
as long as he's got 15. You can't count it out.
Exactly.
15 is the ultimate equalizer in any NFL debate.
All right, fellas, this has been a ton of fun. We've been live streaming for about 3 hours now, but just one last thing I definitely want to go around the horn on. Tell us about all the stuff that you're working on. I know we sort of brought it up during the live stream as well, but I mean, just bring up anything that you're working on. Some teases, obviously, for podcasts as well. Once again, we'll go around the horn here. I'll start with Al. Just, give a shout out to all your social media handles and stuff that's coming to Salute to Troy.
Yeah, so like you said, Salute to Troy. Well, my man right there, the madman, Jamal.
Oh.
Is it the other way?
Yeah.
No, he's right there.
Yeah, that guy,
Yeah. Madman Jamal Maggie, Salute to Troy. We're doing a roster breakdown right now. I think we'll eventually get to corners. We've been having some great guests. We've been inviting all of our Twitter super fans on every Thursday. So yeah, we're just moving through the all season. Pretty smooth right now. We haven't hit a snag, knock on wood. So come check this out. Salute to Troy podcast.
All right. Tad, I'll pass it to you. What are we promoting again? Stuff that we're working on.
The Sorry Guys Fantasy Football Podcast. Fantasy football, thank God, is done. It was a rough year for us, but it was still awesome. We had a ton of fun with the LAFB League. Al and Chauncey, who I'm sure is one of our watchers right now, your nameplates are on the way. I promise. I'm working on it right now. So we will add that to the trophy. But in the meantime, we are doing a ton of great stuff in the offseason. The Combine's coming up, so we're going to preview that. We are going to talk Senior Bowls, winner and losers. I know we didn't talk as much about the game as some people would prefer, but you know what? We'll say that.
I'm not sure there were any winners in the Senior Bowl today.
Really, it's Spencer Rattler for some reason.
That's why we did not talk about it. But we have a lot of great draft coverage coming up over the next couple months, and of course, we are going to live stream day 1 and day 2 of the draft. TBD on day 3. We kind of ran out of energy towards the end of last year, but we'll see. But the first round with me, Al, Amr, that was the most fun I've ever had watching a draft. That was so much fun. Al, don't podcast and drive, man.
I don't think I will have to this year. So
okay, that's good. You won't be at an airport at your kid's soccer game because that was usually.
I was at the park at my kid's baseball game.
That's what it was.
And I was still able to do it, and I only missed like 4.
And it was greatly appreciated, but it was just hilarious because like pick 15, Al randomly like came in on the highway. We're just like, just stop, just get home. But we're gonna
call commitment.
We're gonna do that. It greatly appreciated. So we're gonna do that again with the live draft commitment. But yes, just for all your best draft covers, tune in to the Decide guys. Tad Decide 94, Murder Decide 23 on Twitter and Instagram, and of course the Decide guys on both Instagram and Twitter as well. We will answer all of your questions as we can throughout the draft process.
All right, Jamal, close us out. What are the stuff that you're working on?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate with Fred on Salute to Troy. Follow us on USC LAFB. A lot of exciting things going on. We've had USCJ, Arrogant Nation, Nico, a lot of guys, kind of super fans on social media. So a lot of fun engagement over in the weeks to come. Follow us, obviously, with the Bruin Bible and UCLA LAFB. We've got Carson Steele on. I think there's going to be a lot of movement here in terms of Chip Kelly's job the next couple of days. So tune in to some emergency pods on Bruin Bible as that happens. Me and Will got you covered. We're also doing a little bit of UCLA basketball sprinkled in. So lots of excitement there. And then I'll close it out with, a lot of traffic on the website. Tune in to just LAFBnetwork.com. We've got all your breaking news needs on all 4 teams. So much going on with Harbaugh's arrival, what the Rams are going to do in the draft, USC, UCLA, nil and transfer portal items. And then above all else, we got the group next week in Radio Row in Vegas. So myself, Ryan Anderson, Skinny T, Will Decker, Danny Dubb of the Chargers got you covered next week in Vegas. We're trying to get Fred for a guest appearance. We'll fingers crossed there.
Working on it.
To join us. But we're going to have all your needs there. We're going to do some fun things with fan engagement, some nice conversations. We've already signed some really exciting players over the course of the week. We're going to interview Oscar De La Hoya. We've got some fun things going on. So keep it right with LAFB, USC LAFB, UCLA LAFB, LAFBnetwork.com, and stay tuned on Radio Row coverage next week.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a perfect way to close it out. But guys, we appreciate everybody who tuned into the live stream, who participated in the comments, who's subscribing to the social media handles that we all listed out. Just any way that you're supporting the LAP Network, we appreciate you guys. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Fight on.
Forza.